Welcome to the Sunday Show. I'm your host, Seth Andrews, and I'm joined today by the delightful, charming Jack Russell Terrier that is Forrest Valkai. How are you doing today?
I'm well. You're going to milk that joke forever, aren't you? The father-son thing.
One of my favorite. It's one of my favorite memes I've ever started in my entire life. It was a bit. It was a stupid throwaway line, and people latched onto it, and I can't let it go. And I don't think
lunch
anybody
yesterday.
Else can either.
Forrest and Erica were both in town, and we ate lunch at a lovely spot over near 71st and Memorial. We're all hanging out, and we're catching up. And we took a picture, and Erica sees the photo and says, "Dad let us out early to go to lunch." And I'm like, oh, it cuts me. It cuts me deep.
So fucking funny, dude. It's so funny. We got a great show for everybody today. It's the day show. Usually I'm here in the night times, but we decided to make a special exception because Matt went off to fight in the Spice Wars. And so we're today doing the day show just for you as a special treat. For you specifically. You watching this is happening just for you. So it's your fault, really. 720-619-2288 is the number on the bottom of the screen if you believe in a god or gods, if you believe in angels or demons, if you don't believe in some kind of science. Specifically, we're very interested in talking about Christianity because we live in Oklahoma, of all places, and in the United States, a place that is dominated by far-right evangelical Christo-fascist lunacy at this moment. So call in and tell us why we should believe in this God, why you think the Bible is the good book, why you think we should repent of our sins, or that hell is a reasonable option, or that heaven is a place we should want to go. Number on the bottom of the screen again, 720-619-2288, or if you're outside of the U.S., you can use the web link in the description. We already have a couple people on the line right now, but we have plenty more spots. So pick up that phone. Seth.
Being from Oklahoma, it's funny, I was having a conversation a few days ago. I can't even remember what it was, but we were talking about the science. It probably was vaccines, because I've kind of been on that kick again lately. I did a feature on my show recently about how the flu shot works. And no, you cannot get the flu from the flu shot. And if you get sick after the flu shot, it means the shot is working. And here's what the body is doing, blah, blah, blah. And it's not a direct quote, but it's like, yeah, but what did the scientists know? And it reminded me again of the culture of the war on expertise, right? It's almost like the more someone invokes experts or scientific consensus, what we have determined as fact, the more you are able to reveal and show the sourcing, the less true that it is. And I just think, what do they know? Is just, I'm not even sure how you defend that or how you refute it. What do you do when somebody says, oh, I don't trust the experts? It's almost like what CBS just did with the evening news. Barry Weiss installs this new anchor who then comes forward for the evening news and says, you know what? We've relied too much on the experts and the elites in their fields. We want to know what you think, America. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You're going to focus on the people who think you can get like breast cancer from using the microwave oven. Yeah. The people who are aligning their chakras and trusting TikTok influencers to do. I mean, I just think this is terrifying. It's a war on expertise, right?
No, it certainly is. It's part of the populist movement right now, when one person's gut feeling is as reliable as an expert's opinion. And like, that's not to say that an expert can't be wrong. Sure. No, it totally can. But at the end of the day, they have dedicated years of their lives to learning this specific topic. You should at least give them a little more credibility than your own, just what we would call common sense. Because, there's that old phrase, common sense isn't that common. Unfortunately, I think that common sense is far too commonly believed to be sensical. there's this thing that we talk about when you're first learning science. Is called naive realism, which is the idea that your five senses are enough to determine the reality around you and to learn everything you need to know about the universe. And that's just not the case. Like that's the entire endeavor of science for the past very long time, has been taking things that we can't perceive very simply with our eyes and our ears and just pure logic and reason, and translating them into a language that we know how to speak as humans. So like if you don't get that.
There's a memory expert. I had her on the show. It's been 10 years. Her name is Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, and she's participated in a lot of memory experiments. She was featured on a TV show that was on called Brain Games, but they set up a scenario about perception, and they stage a crime, a mugging in broad daylight in this square. I don't know if you can get away with it today. I mean, they might get shot, but back in the day, they were able to pull it off. And it was actors, right? They had an actor with a white handbag or something, and then the mugger comes, grabs the handbag, runs off. The mugger's wearing a very specific colored outfit. And then they interview the eyewitnesses to find out what went down. And the people who saw the very same crime saw different stuff. The handbag was white. No, it was green. No, I think it was a beige. The mugger was wearing this. He was wearing that. No, it was red. It was blue. It was a down jacket. It was a sweater. He had just a shirt on. He was this. He was that. You know, perception is terrifying. It's one of the reasons that if I ever end up in a court of law for any reason, and I hope it does not happen, but if I'm ever like being judged, eyewitness testimony to me is terrifying. It's terrifyingly unreliable, I think. So
yeah, no, and you're right. And there's that experiment which has been done a bunch of times, and it always has the same results. There's anybody can go look up the gorilla perception test. Is a really famous one. Yeah, it's people in different colored jerseys passing a basketball, and you ask the class, count how many times people in white jerseys pass the basketball back and forth, and they'll count, and they come up with different answers. Oh, there was 13. Oh, it was 15 times, whatever. And nobody noticed the person in the gorilla suit that walks into the middle of the screen and beats his chest and then walks off screen. Nobody sees it because they're not focused on that, even though it's right in front of their faces. I did that to a high school class once, and it blew their minds. It's like, this is why you cannot trust that you are like Sherlock Holmes observing every single piece of every single bit of evidence all the single time. Like, it just doesn't happen.
But if you go into laboratory conditions, is the goal to remove the human element outright? That's not even possible, right? I mean, what's the goal?
But like you want to get around it. Like that's the goal of science is to get out of your own way as a human being. And that's what statistics are for. That's what repeatability is for. That's what falsifiability is for. That's what strong inference is for. That's what all these things are for, is to try to challenge yourself so that you're not just saying what what it used to be in the 1800s. Like, yeah, I kind of think it's this, and maybe it's this. It's probably this, And when you're talking about vaccines and everything like that, the fact of the matter is, vaccine research is done under absurdly strict regulations and in very, very controlled settings by well-trained experts who are, cranking down data to like the 100th decimal place to try to find this exact functionality of exact antigen and the exact cell or exact tissue you put in it, all these different things. Anti-vax research is done on this device right here, and usually in this position right here. While just jumping on the toilet. You're just here, you're just dumping, and you're just looking up whatever Facebook meme you want, and this is how you become an anti-vax researcher. This is how you do it. And it's just, we're not in the same fucking ballpark, dude. And so, I think, like, it's one of those things, just, anti-vaxxers, they are the same kind of science deniers as creationists, as flat earthers, as transphobes, as chemtrail believers, as all these other things. It always, always, always boils down to conspiracy theory. It's that there is this, I love that. It's that there is this, massive cabal, this secret society, this huge elite organization interconnecting the entire world just to spread these lies, and they're bringing up new scientists, training people in how to think so that they can fool them, training people to be excited to share their work with the world so that they will suppress it. Going back hundreds, thousands of years, way back before we had any kind of reliable communication network, costing billions of untold dollars, taking all manner of resources, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, all working together, precise coordination with the same goal, not a single one of them speaking out in any way that is traceable or that matters in any way, and all of it to fuck with you. I'm sorry, it's the exact same argument all the time, every single time.
This is what I do.
Blows.
I just throw something out. I sit back, drink my coffee, and I just let Forrest work himself up. And it's only 11 minutes into the show. I mean, this is my jam.
And here we are doing this.
This feeds something in me, and I do enjoy it.
Didn't we both wake up like an hour ago as well?
I just had the worst. Do you ever have those nights? I was telling Luxander, like, I didn't sleep very well. I just tossed and turned. I've been sleeping not very well anyway, because I cannot turn off the stress of what is happening all around us.
Yeah.
And I try to distract myself. I don't know. I'm trying to relax. I will get up for a little while, but as I lay there, I just think, I just feel nothing but angst and despair and all these horrible things. And so I just woke up kind of nothing. Like, I don't feel great. I don't feel bad. I just feel flatlined. And there's not really any spark. And I think everybody can relate to having been there if they aren't there now. I'm glad to be here, but I find myself, it's almost like I use the analogy, if somebody wraps you on the skin long enough, scar tissue will develop eventually. And the nerve centers become less acute. You feel less. Mm-hmm. And I feel less right these days. Yeah. And I hate that about myself. I hate the fact that but it's almost like a defense mechanism. You got to thicken the shell or else you just go insane. And so anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I don't think there's anything to feel bad about or to hate about yourself. That's just fatigue. Like there's a thing, compassion fatigue is a real thing in people who work for Department of Human Services, people who work in like child welfare, people who work as defense attorneys, people who work with people who are suffering and charity and things like. You're surrounded by such pain and such misery. At a certain point, these people kind of become assholes a little bit, and you're like, "What's going on? Why are you such a jerk?" It's because they have been so compassionate for so long, they're fucking tired, and they have to take a break, or they become numb. Like you're talking about now. And I feel like that's part of I don't want to say it's part of the plan, because I think that our government is too fucking stupid to coordinate such a plan, but that is something that helps.
Well, I think there's legitimate. Steve Bannon, right? Trump's advisor, said flood the zone, drop 3 major things every day, drive people crazy. They can't keep up. They'll either check out or be chasing their tail. Meanwhile, we can go do what they want. So there is a strategy there. Sadly, it's kind of effective. It
is. It is. That's what I'm saying. I don't think you have anything to feel bad about. I think you're exhausted, and as you should be. And I think this is a good lesson for everybody out there, is that give yourself a break, take time off. I know it sucks. And when you figure out how to take a break and forget about the world for a minute and give yourself a chance to reset and not feel bad about it, let me know, because I have the same issue. Yeah, please, because it's the same thing. I know this is good advice, and I struggle with it too. You're just one person, and you can't fix everything, and you can't care about everything all the time. So putting it down for a second is good, and remaining hopeful is resistance. And so the more hope you can find, tiny bits, scraps, anything keeps you going. And then getting out there and being active, as I know you and I have gone to a bunch of the same protests. Getting out there and being active helps maintain that hope as well.
There's another one coming up. I just saw No Kings March 28th. So amazing. I know they're waiting for the weather to warm, hopefully.
Yeah.
But there is another massive. We had, I think they said 7 million, and then they said it may have been triple that for the last No Kings in October. With ice and all the shit that's going down, I expect this to be a historic turnout. And I'm trying to think of what my sign will say. I'm tempted to do something that Christy Burke is doing. Christy Burke is a fellow activist. She's running for office in Tennessee, and she has made T-shirts and hoodies that says, I'm going to say, it's ICE is a taxpayer-funded terrorist organization. I bought that shirt. it's going to arrive in the mail. So I know I'm probably going to wear that, but I'll probably like, you want a sign that has a message, but also has style. So I'm going to try to figure out what sign to bring. And I'm sure I'll see Forrest there because we always bump into each other. So.
You won't, because I just checked the 28th. I'll be in St. Louis speaking at the Ethical Society of St. Louis. And so if it's going to be, I'll make sure to put a note in my talk there.
Okay.
And if it's difficult to convince the Ethical Society that ICE is a bunch of bastards, then I don't know if they're in the Ethical Society.
No, they're amazing. They are amazing. And they meet in an amazing facility. It's this, I think it's a former church, and it's got these wooden archways, and it's magically lit, and it's just a cool spot. I think you're going to have a good time. So
I'm doing two. I'm doing back to back. I'm going on the 28th, and I'm doing my usual, the Symphony of Biology, and then I'm going back the next day. I'm staying overnight, and the next day on March 1st, I'm going to be doing the Symphony of Biology, Life Lessons from the Lab first, and then the Symphony of Biology, the one that you saw at Valkai this last time, the next day.
Awesome.
It's going to be great. So check that. If you want to go check that out, by the way, it's on my website, valkailabs.com. You can sign up for that. We still got people waiting. I'm going to jump into those. But to everybody out there, hey, you're tired. We're tired. Everybody's tired. That's part of it. That's part of it. We're going through a lot right now. But if you're going through hell, keep on going. And
it means you have a beating heart, right? It means you have a beating heart. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And there's some real truth to that.
Precisely. So, use that. Consider that fatigue that you're feeling a very good sign. And then keep on fighting. With that, we have two people on the line right now. Looks like both of them are atheists, I believe. Anyway, so we're going to start with talking to Pip, and then we'll move on from there. But lines are open, and we're always down to talk to theists. That is the point of this show. I know it's early on in the year, and we shows tend to kind of stagnate a little bit around that time. But if you're out there and you think that you have a good reason for us to believe in a God, or hey, if you're a MAGA supporter, if you're an ICE supporter, call in and tell us why Nazis are good in your opinion. It'll be a fun time. Pip, you were on the line with Forrest and Seth. How you doing today?
I'm doing as well as I can be. I only just learned about the concept of compassion fatigue today, and wow, that explains so much of my life. That's not true, but also weirdly optimistic, I think. I don't know.
Yep. It's a bad time. Hey, what can we talk to you about today? What's going on?
Right. The topic I wanted to discuss is a matter of biblical accuracy, because this came after seeing the full clip of the Charlie, not the chaplain, and the Kirk, not the captain, talking about Miss Rachel and how supposedly it's biblically accurate to say that, stoning gay people is biblical law. And this is a particular appeal to authority that he would regularly do. And my thoughts are, so what? I don't give two shits about whether something is actually said by the Bible or not. I don't think that, stoning people for simply loving someone of the same gender or physical sex, or however you want to define it, is an ethical position. And so, and considering how many times those on the line have discussed and debated about what is and isn't in the Bible, I'm wondering if we're if you'll pardon the pun, missing the forest through the trees. I'm wondering how much it actually matters, and at what point do we say, look, the Bible's just a book. Whether it's, whether it's decreed by some, weird, obsessive deity who cares what hole you're sticking a genitalia into, shouldn't really matter. So why does it matter that, the Bible is supposedly, saying this thing or another?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it depends on what angle you want to take the call, because like if you have somebody who is, that is their entire argument is like, well, the Bible says this, and they are deeply entrenched in their belief, then it might be worth it to like point out, hey, That's not what the Bible says, nor is this the law that you should care about. Here's the translation, here's the history, here's the blah, 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 blah. But if there's somebody you think you can get through to that's a little bit more reasonable, then it's definitely worth it to say, okay, your religion says you can't do this, so you shouldn't. Meanwhile, I'm going to do whatever my beliefs say I can and can't do. And as long as I'm not forcing you to get gay married, leave me the fuck alone. Or here's what your God is worth to me, or here's why I would never worship such an evil deity, or here's whatever else. It really just depends on where that call is coming from. And also, as professional content creators, and we have a catalog of calls out there, and we are a deconstruction hub where people can come to look through good and bad arguments and learn what atheists think and everything. Maybe it's also just you're freaking tired of answering the same question 1,000 times. You're going to take it a different way today. So it really is up to style, vibes, intentions, and predictable outcomes. Pip, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense to me. I often try and appeal to the already humanist values of my religious friends, in that whether there is a God or not doesn't really matter compared to their actions. And I know that their actions are one that is sharing my humanist values of caring about people. Like, it's nigh impossible to, legally anyway, follow the Bible 100% literal. Even the creationists who constantly spout how literal everything in the Bible is and that you should just never question it, probably still wear mixed fabrics, eat shellfish, and so on and so forth. And as such, I sometimes find it a better angle to appeal to the already, kind people who are Christians, like Miss Rachel and so on and so forth, because we share that common humanity, and they are good people, regardless of whether there is a God or not.
Yeah, if more Christians were like Miss Rachel or Frazzled or James Talrico, or a bunch of these content creators and up and coming politicians, I wouldn't. I would still have an issue with Christianity, but I wouldn't have nearly an issue with Christians that I have in this country. So I agree with you, on most of it. By the way, just want to throw this out there. We've already got a ton of people having to be timed out in the chat because they're preaching or they're arguing about what the show should or shouldn't be and everything like that. There's a number on the screen, right? I don't know if I can be more clear about this. 740-619-2288. Or, 720. So you'd say I could be more clear. I get the goddamn number right. 720-619-2288. Or use the web link in the description. If you have a comment or a question or a concern or a critique, this is the show for you. We already have only one other person waiting on the line, so pick up that phone. Anyway, with that, Pip, I hope we've answered your question a little bit, and I hope it makes somewhat sense that, I agree with you. Yeah, the what the Bible says argument doesn't really do dick for anybody who doesn't already believe in the Bible, and I wish more Bible-believing Christians understood that. Seth, do you have anything to add before we move on to the next call?
I do not.
Excellent. All right, well, take care, Pip. Have an awesome rest of your day.
No problem. And as the Lord once said, come forth and receive eternal life. But John came fifth and won a toaster.
There you go.
Bye for now.
So I lied. I actually do have a thought. I just wanted to do it post-call. There is a lovely idea from moderates and progressive Christians that Jesus was all love and light. John Pavlovitz does this. I'm trying to think of some of the other progressive. April LaJoy, who's a sister. I mean, she's just one of my favorite people, does this. Talarico's the same way down in Texas, and many others. Yep. And I so appreciate their heart. In their mind, Jesus was love and light who would never judge. He would have accepted everybody. Come as you are, and I will wrap my ever-loving divine arms around you, and it will all be hunky-dory kumbaya. And that God would have never condemned gays, that God would have never executed disobedient children, that God would have never endorsed slavery, and that God would have never created hell. It's a noble idea, and I so appreciate. Well, what we're seeing is someone who's using an external, actually it's internal to them, but it's external of the Bible, morals guideline to make a moral judgment about the Bible, and they're discarding parts of it, or they're contextualizing or rationalizing it, and they're saying, no, 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 that's not my God. Much of that then distills down to it's a relationship, it's not a religion. Jesus lives in my heart. I know, I feel the Spirit, and it is all love and goodness. That's an amazing thing, and I'm thankful for it. And my allies in the fight against fascism and Christian nationalism are many of those people, right? Rachel Lazar at Americans United for the separation of church and state is a practicing Jew. Amanda Tyler at the Baptist Joint Committee, she is a practicing Baptist, and yet they have humanist values. But you cannot separate the Bible from Christianity if you're going to do it correctly, I don't think. And Jesus was not all love and light, and neither were his disciples. The Old Testament God, certainly, but people like to say, well, in the New Testament, in the New Covenant, Jesus was never this. He was never that. There were no New Testament verses that were anti-gay, etc. That's just false, and it tells me that people haven't done a proper reading of their Bibles. I just published a 2-hour conversation on my own channel, the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel, with Justin DZ of Deconstruction Zone, and we got into this whole Old Testament bad, New Testament good argument and why it's horseshit. If you're going to look at literal Christianity, fundamental Christianity per the Christian scriptures, then we see the bigotry, we see the dominionism, we see Christian nationalism, Christian globalism peppered throughout all 66 books of the Bible. And so it's great that the moderates have sort of made Jesus in their own image. Good for them. But I think once we've defeated Christian nationalism and once we put out the wildfire in our nation, there are conversations that we need to have about theology with the egalitarians out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. I would love more Christians to read just Matthew, especially, where it's talking a lot about, like, don't preach out in the streets like the hypocrites do, and don't do vain repetitions, and don't ask for what you want. God already knows you want. You have the Lord's Prayer, and that's all you need. Don't go out, trying to chastise people on whatever, remove the plank from your eye for you, the speck in your brother's, and all that. Like, all those things are in there. And most importantly, in where it says that if anybody won't receive you, if anybody doesn't want to hear the word, that you should leave that town so fast that you shake the dust off your feet, that they're already doomed. To leave them the hell alone. Don't waste your time. And maybe that's what's happened today. Because we got one other call who wants to talk about sex and gender. We don't have any Christian callers today. Maybe they read Matthew and they remembered that, hey, they're not even supposed to bother with this shit.
I remember I had one guy who was defending a literal Jesus in the literal Bible, and he was giving me that sort of pat on the head. I will pray for you. If only you really knew Jesus, you would have never left him, blah, blah, blah. And he was very concerned about hell. I don't want to see you burn in hell. I don't want to see you go to hell. And I remember I just come to the point in my life when I was very defiant, and fearless is not the word, but I wanted to act as if I had no fear of torment in the afterlife. I knew that hell was a human construct. It was a threat. It was a control mechanism. And so I looked right in this guy's eyes and I said, do you believe that blasphemy is unforgivable and will guarantee that I am damned forever? And he said, yes, blasphemy. That's the unforgivable sin. And I looked him in the eye and I said, I blaspheme the Holy Spirit. You should have seen his face. He literally went sheet white, as if he was watching someone condemned in real time. Now I'm done. I'm irretrievable. I'm unsavable. It's over. And I think it traumatized the guy, freaked him out.
Yeah. No, I've done the same things on a few occasions on like one of my old live streams. It's just like, I renounce the Holy Spirit. It's over. It's done. Leave me the fuck alone. And you have people like that who are at least consistent. And then you have other people who will say, no, well, would you have to understand? I can still get through to you. And it's just like, okay, clearly this is about you. This is not about your God. This is not about faith. This is not about heaven and hell. This is about you getting a win and feeling intellectually and morally superior. That's what this is actually about. And you see that a lot, especially one of my favorite thought experiments to do with Christians is, they give you the same line. Oh, I'll pray for you. I'll pray. What? Okay, don't. I'm asking you politely not to pray for me. And I had a conversation with one dude on this exact thing. And he's like, well, no, I'm going to pray for you. I'm like, okay, I'm asking you not to. I don't want anything to do with your God. What are you praying for? Well, I'm praying that God will reveal himself and change your mind. I'll say, right, you're praying for your God to intervene with my life, with my mind, with my will, with my desires. I'm telling you no. I don't want that. I'm asking you not to pray. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. I've got to pray for you. I have to pray for everybody. So it's a lack of consent. You're doing it against my will. You are trying to force me. I'm not trying to force you. I just want to. You're praying for God to change my mind. You're praying for God to come into my life and alter my reality and change who I am. You are trying to violate my free will, and you're doing it without my consent. Don't pray for me. I don't want it. And that is, we went on this for like an hour and a half. This dude could not get the concept that prayer was an intercessory thing, that it was something being forced upon me. Consent was such a foreign concept in this way. And that's, yeah,
but
it makes a lot of sense.
I take the opposite. Like, pray for me.
XIAMI, whatever, Zammy, whatever the fuck, call in, and we'll talk about what fascism is. Go ahead.
I take the opposite. Like, pray for me. I don't know. It's no skin off my teeth. Go somewhere, pray, knock yourself out, waste your breath. And what I find is, for me, I will usually include, have you prayed for me in the past? Yes. What have you prayed for? That you will find that Jesus will reveal himself and that you will be saved. Do you believe in the power of prayer? Yes, I do. Okay. Well, you realize now the burden is off of you, right? If God is all powerful and God cares that much, and you have petitioned God to change my mind, God has already heard the petition. It's already in his Rolodex, or it's in his file, or it's in his inbox, or on his Excel sheet, or it's on his to-do list, man. You're off the hook. Now, I did this with my parents. They were terrified. They were horrified. They were embarrassed. They were ashamed that their evangelical son had become an atheist, and they would continue to just beat me over the head with a theological baseball bat. And I finally, I'm like, do you believe in the power of prayer? Absolutely. Have you prayed on my behalf that Jesus would reveal himself? Absolutely. You now do not have to call, email, or text me ever again on this subject. You can wash your hands. It is in the hands of the divine. The creator of the cosmos already knows what your petition is. You can relax. And if his will be done, I will be saved. It's a win-win for everybody. And you're right. I did find that it was kind of about them. Like, they're either insecure that God couldn't pull it off, or they wanted a win. They wanted a notch on the gun. They wanted a check mark to say that they had brought the prodigal home. Either way, I think it betrays a lack of trust in their God.
Yeah. I think this is a good conversation, not only just to think about, but also, like, we had a lot of people who called in saying, like, how do I deal with Christian family members? How do I deal with, don't click code. What did we disagree on? They're doing bingo about us. Nobody disagreed on a thing. But
it's like different approaches. Yeah.
But no, I think that this is a good conversation. We get a lot of callers who ask, like, how do I deal with Christian family members? How do I deal with religious people in my day-to-day life? How are ways to stay above? I think these are great strategies, just to like, use the religion that they're espousing. I get, if you're not going to argue about their religion, it doesn't do any good to convince them God isn't real. Okay, do you trust your God or not?
There's chat bingo. I see a white dot. There's actually
there's chat bingo.
What do you call that? A Chad, or what do you call the bingo stamps?
A daub.
Is it a daub? Okay,
I think so. I think
bingo. I will be on the lookout for those. Wonderful.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of them. If you're in the Discord, if you're on the line Discord, they have it in there. I'm not on the line Discord because I can't be bothered, but like, it is there. I've seen it. But we've got.
I hate Discord. I hate Discord. I cannot figure it out. There are too many channels. There are too many threads. I feel the same way about Reddit. Jesus, I cannot navigate Reddit, and apparently everybody else is on Reddit. Somebody explain this to me. I don't understand. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. We're going to take this next call about sex and gender, but just really quick before we do, one last thing is we have shows coming up right now. It's a Sunday show, normal style, with me and Seth. Stay after the show at 7 p.m. tonight. It's going to be Justin and Paul on the Sunday show after dark. Then we've got R and Ra and Natalia on the Skeptalk. Then we've got Alyssa and Promise on Chewed Gum. Then we've got Matt and Justin on the Hang Up. Then we've got Luxander and Josie on the Transatlantic Call-In Show. And then it looks like we have a Cus I Wanna on the 7th with John, but I don't know who the co-host is, and that is everybody for this week. We've also got more shows after that. scheduled. We've got like a ton of Cus I Wannas scheduled for this month, including one that we are currently setting up with Erica. But again, same person who had to be viewed in the chat. I'd like to see if you can prove the book. Call the fucking show. What do you want me to do? But like, I'm going to sit here and argue with your text in the chat with a 20-minute delay. It's going to be great. Great fucking viewership for every.
FYI, let me jump in quickly. Promise you mentioned is going to be one of the hosts or co-hosts. She's got a new book that's coming out called Gospel of Lies. I know this has been a work that she's been nibbling away at for a while, and I just saw a galley version of it, and it's about to be published by Media Lab Books, I think, in the next few months. So congrats to Promise. Writing a book is a major thing. Her story is so compelling. So when Gospel of Lies releases, support that woman and support that book. It's going to be amazing. So
you sounded sarcastic at the end.
No. I'm trying to be enthusiastic. I'm gliding through the vowels and consonants for emphasis. Like if it was sarcastic, I'd be like, amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, I would have done it.
But do absolutely go check that out. And also today apparently is the last day to buy mugs. So if you want one of our beautiful mugs from this last year, pick those guys up. And now let's go ahead and knock out this call about sex and gender, if that's cool with you. And then we'll move on to other things. We already have a couple more calls coming in, so we'll see what they're all about. Let's talk to Rob, who wants to talk about sex and gender. How you doing today, Rob?
Hi, Forrest. Thanks for taking my calls. Good to speak to you again. Seth, good to speak to you for the first time.
Thank you.
Can you back off your mic a little bit, or if are we on headphones or anything like that?
No, you're not. Is it too loud or something?
It's just clipping a bit.
Okay, I'll step back from the microphone a bit. Is that any better?
Awesome. That's way better.
Yeah.
Way better.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll stay here. So, I'm not sure if you remember me. We spoke back in October.
Sorry, I don't, but I'm sure it was awesome.
That's fine. Okay, yeah. So we spoke about sex and gender, and we had an interesting discussion. And you said you didn't mute me as much as other hosts did, but once you did mute me, you did say quite a few things that were wrong. I was hoping I could just address some of them. First of all, I think we spoke about having separate categories for sex. So when you have people in places for their sex and not their gender, and you came up with the phrase "separate but equal." And because I'm in the UK, I didn't really know what that meant. But when I read when I watched it again and I read the live chat and all the comments, I think you were maybe alluding to some sort of racial segregation. And I think to try to equate separating people based on their sex with racial segregation in America was kind of like quite disgusting, really. But if that's what you were trying to say. And
okay.
So
do you have anything new, or do you just are you wanting to rehash the fact that you didn't like some things that I said to you several months ago?
Well, I couldn't speak them at the time because you'd muted me. So
right. So if I muted you, then it was probably I very rarely mute people. So if I had muted you, then there was probably a major disagreement, or I was seriously angry or disgusted or annoyed, or some other emotion that is difficult to draw out of me unless I'm doing a show like this. And you're upset that I didn't take something seriously, or that I said something that you didn't like, and you waited several months to now call in and finally get back at me. So do you want to have an actual productive conversation, or are we just going to go through the argument you've had with your soap bottles in the shower 1,000 times, and you're going to give me all the lines you rehearsed and told me how evil I am in your head so many times? Like, what are we doing?
No, a few things. Well, I mean, I couldn't have responded before if you'd muted me. I'm not having to go at you for that.
Right. I wouldn't have muted you if I thought you had anything more of value to say. So I don't know who you are. I don't know what our last call was. I don't know what your points were, but I very rarely mute people unless they're interrupting a whole bunch. They're being an asshole. They're not listening. They're not paying attention to what was being said to them. If it's an unproductive conversation, there's a few reasons that I mute people, and it's never good. So, like, you don't like what I said about you? Okay. I don't like whatever you said then. I also don't remember what it was. We are in disagreement. Great. Would you like to now have a conversation? Or do you want to just tell me all the things you don't like that I said several months ago?
No. Well, it's not really that I don't like it. It's more of a response to some of the things. So
let's have a new conversation today.
Okay, you said I spoke about the scientists who don't push the trans agenda, and I mentioned Richard Dawkins, Colin Wright, and Jerry
Trans
Coyne.
agenda.
Yes, and then you said about how when you were doing your studies, all your professors said that they were wrong. Can you actually say in what ways they're wrong?
Sure. They disagree with modern biology. They disagree with the academic consensus in this area. And they say things that are intellectually inconsistent and biologically indefensible, in my opinion.
Which is what?
And if you're, I'm gonna, because of these are people who are arguing, and I don't know all their arguments. I'm not going to go through a bullet point list of everything that each one of them says, but we're just going to go with a blanket general statement here. Sex and gender are different things. They're non-synonymous. They're not necessarily congruent, and they're not binary. That's like the basics here. So if you have somebody who's disagreeing with that, okay, you can do an argument from authority if you'd like and say this one single person says it, or you can not do that and say, well, let's see what major professional organizations in this area are saying about this. Let's say what modern universities are teaching about this. Let's say what the modern textbooks are. Let's see what the consensus opinion is in this area. Let's see what actually holds up to the evidence. Because otherwise, it's just, I know a biologist who says this. And at that point, you might as well be citing your chiropractor to say, well, this guy says I don't need chemotherapy. I need to have my back cracked. And it's just, sorry, it's just not good enough.
Okay, well, they did say quite a few things, and we accept.
Yeah, I know they've said quite a few things. A couple of them, Colin Wright in particular, I know has made now his entire career telling everybody, I'm a PhD biologist, so you can believe me when I say that the institutions that gave me my PhD are corrupt and untrustworthy and are pushing this radical, unscientific agenda that no one should believe in. And also now, because I'm white, I'm oppressed is one of his newest things as well, because DEI is the new buzzword for him. Richard Dawkins, the last time I heard anything he said was that everything in biology is a spectra, everything is a gradient, everything has this spectral, except for sex, which is very clearly strictly binary, and gender is some made-up thing used by activists to try to get out of it, which doesn't make any sense on its face. And then Jerry Coyne, the last thing I heard from him, was his god-awful article where he used racist arguments, but just changed the word black for trans and said that trans people are more likely to be sex offenders and violent criminals and they shouldn't be allowed to be therapists and shit. It was just deeply stupid, unscientific thinking that he should be embarrassed about. So, like,
did you think
at the end of the day, you have three people who have said some things that are very silly, that don't go along with the academic consensus in this area, that are 100 years out of date. And I understand this is a hot-button political issue right now, but it's just not interesting to me. And I'm not going to sit here and say, well, this scientist said this thing, because I can come back with files and stacks and droves and scores of scientists who say something else, and it means the same nothing. What matters is the evidence and the actual consensus opinion in these areas.
Okay, we could talk about this. So do you think sex isn't binary?
Yes, of course it isn't binary. More than two is not two.
What? So, okay, what's the third sex then?
I didn't say there is one. I just said it's not binary.
Okay, so if sex is based on gametes, and you have sperm and eggs, so
it's not entirely based on gametes. First of all, it's not entirely based on gametes. It's not entirely based on gametes. It's actually a suite of different characteristics. And even if you do go with gametes, not all species have two different types of gametes. There are isogametic species. Not all species reproduce with gametes at all. So, like, and there's also what you could call sexual reproduction in single-celled organisms. So, like, at the end of the day, sex is a complex and interesting thing that a lot of people are trying to boil down to a very, very simple concept in order to score political points. And in the exact same way that you couldn't
binary mammal.
pick, you couldn't pick a what do you say, an evolutionary tree in a thing and say, okay, well, show me when does this one species start and this one species begins. That isn't how it works. It's a bit fuzzier than that. It's a bit of a gradient, and there's no good concept of species, no definition of that. Same way you can't define behavior very easily. Same way you can't define communication very easily. The same way you can't define homology very easily. The same way all of these different concepts in biology are fuzzy and wiggly and weird. Sex is also fuzzy and wiggly and weird. And you have a continuum of variation over two major nodes, and we like to pretend that the nodes are real, serious, concrete things, and they're not.
No, it's not. There's we're talking about mammal species. There's only male and female.
But you didn't mention mammals. You just said sex.
Mammals. I mean, I know that fungi, there's different mating types, but just talking about mammals, it's sex is binary because you've only got male and female. And the intersex are people who are gone down partway down the male line and partway down the female line. So in mammals,
so again, you're saying there's only these two things, and then the third thing is actually these two things. And it's like, no one's saying that intersex people are a third sex, but it is clear to say that when we're talking about sex, gametes aren't the only thing here, because there are plenty of people who don't produce gametes. And so
if we're talking about one of the development pathways.
Okay, so then gametes isn't the point, it's development. And if we're talking about development,
pathway. The development
okay, so then it isn't gametes. It has nothing to do with gametes. It has to do with development. Okay, so we're just going to go in a circle here.
Either male or female.
It's clearly gametes, and there's only two types of gametes. Okay, what about things that don't produce gametes? Well, that's development. Okay, so then let's talk about development. No, it's gametes. Like, dude, if we're going to go to development...
Last time we spoke, and I mentioned about how mammals are classed. One of the defining characteristics of mammals is having 3 ear bones. And I mentioned how I know there are some people who don't have 3 ear bones, but the reason why they don't is because something has gone wrong. They were either born with a problem or they had some ear infection. So they're still mammals because they're in that clade, and they should have had 3 ear bones if nothing had gone wrong. So that's the same with the insects.
Right. So how do we work that out? So how do we work that out? What is a more accurate way to describe the ear bones of mammals as a form of as a classification category? What is a better way to do that then? There's a single word you can add.
I mean, it's just a characteristic of them.
A general characteristic then. You can say most mammals have 3 ear bones. Typically, mammals have 3 ear bones. Almost all mammals have. It's very easy to do that. And if you're talking about like defining something, what you need to remember is that there are different ways of doing that. What you are talking about here is typological categories, and typological thinking is very useful for learning big concepts. You want to know what a plant cell is versus an animal cell? Well, clearly, does it have a central vacuole? Does it have a cell wall? We can now define it. Doesn't really work with protists, right? Doesn't really work with things that kind of break that binary, that go outside. Doesn't really work with fungi, right? And so typological thinking is useful. Typological thinking is useful when you are learning big concepts and doing rough categorization. Doesn't work with itty-bitty little things. Same thing with tree thinking. If you're talking about evolutionary background, if I want to say, okay, so here's a wing, so I now know a little bit about the evolution of this thing. This is a penguin, it swims, but I can see this is a wing structure. That tells me where this comes from. That tells me the function of this, even though it's not being used for that function right now. It's an exaptation. I can learn about this. Great. Doesn't work when you're talking about like actually detailing out individuals within a population. What we are talking about here, when we're talking about the sex of humans, is population level thinking, where you have to take into account all of that variation. And we're not saying we don't know what a mammal is anymore because some of them don't have ear bones. We're saying most people have 2 legs. So when we say humans are bipedal, we are accepting the fact that there's some people that don't fall in that category, or some people that break that, whatever. And there's a little bit of wiggle room, and the words like typically and most are very important, and we can't just put a blanket over everybody. Similarly here, because we're talking about sex and gender, which are 2 very different things, if I'm talking about, say, for example, a uterus, it doesn't make sense for me just to say woman, because not all women have a uterus, and not everyone with a uterus is a woman. And whether you accept that sex and gender are different things or not, that is true. And so now when I'm talking about this broad thing, I can't just put a big broad stroke brush on it. It isn't scientifically accurate. I have to embrace that variation if I'm going to be telling the truth. All you're doing here is you're just discovering polythetic classification. It's not news if you're into biology at all. And cluster categorization is very useful. It isn't an argument for a binary. What women don't have uteruses? Anyone with a hysterectomy, dude. My mom doesn't have a uterus.
They had a uterus then, didn't they?
Okay, then somebody who has gone through uterine agenesis, who is born without a uterus. Someone like there's also people who are born without it. There's a million reasons why you might not have a uterus. And again, there are people who aren't women.
Again, something has gone wrong.
And so now we're not talking about biology, we're talking about prophecy. What would they and should they have had? Sorry, dude.
Yes.
And you can take it even further back. If you say that's a development thing, how is that development going on? Well, we have to go back to genes, to chromosomes. Well, there's not only 2 chromosomal configurations, and not everybody who's XX is going to develop as a female, and not everybody who's XY is going to. Okay, well then we have to go back to the genes. Well, not everybody who is. We have to figure out which SRY gene or WNT gene is involved in here. But that doesn't always work either. And what you always end back on is this same thing you just said. Well, they were supposed to. They should have. And that's not how biology works.
Well, it's how biology and medicine works. So, for example,
no, it's not.
Give you another example.
It's not how biology and medicine works, and yet, as someone with a master's degree in biomedical sciences, I can tell you that's not true.
I'm trying to explain biology to you. So, basically, if you have
please explain biology to me.
1 in 100,000 don't have 4 fingers and a thumb, and yet when they're born and the doctor sees that they're missing a thumb, the doctor instantly knows there's something wrong, because by their nature they should have been born with 4 fingers and a thumb.
By their nature?
Yes, because when you have
And if you were paying attention, Rob, you would have heard me address that exact point just a couple of minutes ago. And again, we were talking about, at the beginning of the call, you repeated me when I said that, not all of, I've yet to have a professor in anything, including in biomedical science school, which you just said biology and science disagree, or biology and medicine disagree on these things. Well, when I was doing my master's in biomed, I guarantee I didn't have a single fucking professor who agreed with you, dude. So, I appreciate you trying to explain biology to me, but what you are doing is parroting the beliefs of a few fringe biologists, a couple of them who have made their living just doing public debates and things. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I do the same thing, right? But at the end of the day, you're just saying this biologist said it, and now I believe it, and that's it. And if you cracked open an introductory biology textbook, you would have learned that this is not how actual science works.
It is. Well, you don't know me, but I've got science qualifications. So I'm telling.
Please tell me, what's your biology training?
Should be. Sorry?
What's your biology training? What's your biology training?
Well, it's in the UK. I don't want to say too much about myself, but it is. Well, I do have some biology and science qualifications at the university.
What biology and science qualifications do you have? I'll give you mine if you want to give me yours.
I already know yours, so
great. So what's yours?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's science. It's advanced science qualifications, and you should be able to argue with me on this science and not
in what
use an argument from authority.
Do you have an advanced science qualification in biology or biomedical science or anthropology or psychology or sociology? And you have an advanced training in biology. What degree do you have in biology?
It's like a double bachelor's.
You have a bachelor's in biology?
Double bachelor's, yes.
You have multiple bachelor's in biology. How many bachelor's degrees in biology do you have?
It's based on the UK system, so it's going to be like more of a
that's fine
biology and medicine thing, yeah. So, but anyway, I don't want to.
I have 3 associate's degrees. I have 3 associate's degrees in the US. That's basically just like extended high school for the UK. I understand there's a difference in our systems. I'm asking you, how many biology bachelor's degrees do you have?
Well, it's technically 2.
2 biology bachelor's degrees. Okay, great. What type of biology did
can we
you
not
study?
do the argument from authority then? So you said all your professors
What
said,
type of biology did you study?
I'm not going to answer because it's not. I don't want to say too much about myself. But
Okay,
I do have those
you brought it up, dude.
So
you brought it up and said that you were going to teach me biology because you have this education, and I should be able. And that I should be able to not do an argument of authority when your entire argument so far has been Richard Dawkins said this, and Jerry Coyne said this, and Colin Wright said this. So what are we doing?
Well, because they're saying this, and you saying your professors said that they were wrong. So I'm just asking, what did your professors say?
I'm sitting here explaining it to you. I'm not, Rob, I'm not going to say, well, Dr. Brown told me this, and Dr. Reichardt told me that, and there's no, that would be an argument from authority. I'm saying that in my entire training, I've been giving you the argument. In my entire training, 3 associates, 1 bachelor's, 2 masters, and halfway through a PhD, I have yet to have a single professor argue or agree with the shit that you're saying. So you have some biology training, I have some biology training. We are now at this face-to-face moment where I'm saying, I think the biology works differently than you. And your argument so far is prophecy and what other biologists say. So tell me what I'm wrong about.
Okay, well, the intersex conditions don't dispute the sex binary. So they are still male or female. They've gone down one of the 2 paths, and so sex is a binary.
Okay, so now let's just unpack this for a second, right? How do you determine who is male or female?
Depends males are the ones whose anatomy is organized around the production of small gametes, and females...
What do you mean organized around?
As in they're organized to produce. So if they produce the gametes, that's fine, but if not, if there's some problem where there's a development block where they don't get to produce the gamete, then they're still male or female. So for example, when you say someone who's had a hysterectomy, if you have a child who's had chemotherapy for cancer and that's destroyed their gonads, they can't produce gametes, then they're still male or female, even because they're on that path when they would have produced the gamete had something not gone wrong.
Great. So then we can dismiss gametes, and we can say that instead of gametes, we're talking about gonads, or at least gonadogenesis, right?
Well, the gonadogenesis, yes, but in terms of importance of what gametes they would produce,
right.
Yes.
So then what do we do when we look at a creature with ovotestes?
Well, the thing about ovotestes is it doesn't produce both. It's either one or the other. Most of the time, it's the ovary. Goes the ovarian.
I'm asking you, Rob. Here's this. Let's just make a simple hypothetical. Here's this creature. It has ovotestes, and it's also completely sterile. It's not producing any gametes at all. All you know is that it has this tissue that is both ovarian and testicular. What sex is it? How do you know?
It doesn't produce both. It goes down.
I just said that.
Either one or the other. I'm just telling you. So telling you, it contains both, but one it does not produce a third gamete, and it goes down one.
I didn't say it did.
Pathway. I'm just explaining.
I'm going to repeat the question because it sounds like I'm going to repeat the question because it sounds like you weren't listening. Here's this hypothetical creature. It has ovotestes and it is completely sterile. It does not produce gametes at all. How do you, Rob, determine its sex?
Well, you could look at the ovotestis under a microscope and see whether it has a predominance of ovarian or testicular tissue, and then you could classify it as male or female based on that.
Okay, so now we're going to continue this hypothetical. Here's this person walking down the street. Not saying this is possible, just running a hypothetical by you, Rob. Here's this person walking down the street, and they have ovotestes. How do you convince them to allow you to dissect them and take a tissue sample of their ovotestes so you can do histology on it and determine whether they are male or female?
Well, you'd have to ask their permission, of course, but if they don't want to...
You don't.
Then you don't.
You don't. Because at the end of the day, what you are dealing with is someone's gender, not their sex, right?
No, their gender is something completely different. So, for example, I could see... I mean, I don't know much about animals from looking at them, so I could guess that a dog is male when it's actually female, or I can guess that it's female when it's actually male. So what I see and what I attribute to it could be completely wrong.
Right. I just, this is so stupid. Sorry, I am okay. Sorry. I'm laughing at a couple of things right now. I think Seth is going to kill himself if we continue.
23.5 minutes.
The point,
is
Rob.
Plenty, Rob.
Yeah. The point,
Plenty.
Rob, is that there are variations in all of these traits. And sex is a multivariate system with lots of different individual moving parts going into it. Not a single one of those parts has only two outcomes, or only two options. Not a single one of those parts is solely determinate of the entire outcome. And what you are doing is setting the goalposts on gametes and then moving it back to gonads and then moving it back to development and then moving it back to whatever, and finally ending on what should be. And there are plenty of hypothetical situations, some of them not fantastical, where you would not be able to use your system to tell because sex is classified in a polythetic way. It is cluster categorization. I can go pull out one of my old human biology textbooks that talks about exactly this. And what I'm trying to get across to you, dude, is that when I'm looking at different species of humans, and I say this one is definitely Homo erectus and this one is definitely Homo sapiens, that doesn't mean there isn't anything in between. It means that they're not categorized that way by human scientists trying to make things easy for further research to happen. Fact of the matter is, when I was in grad school for biomedical sciences, the thing that you think you can fucking teach me about with your 2 bachelor's degrees that you won't even elaborate on, is that I did a speech about biomed beyond binaries and how we should be using different language guidelines in both research and science communication about sex being non-binary. And one of the other scientists in the room, one of the professors at the university, challenged me and said, okay, but when I'm doing research, there's going to be maybe one intersex person in there. I don't have the ability to measure all the different sex characteristics of every single one of my research participants. That's weird for me to try to do statistics on, and that's cumbersome. And I said, I agree entirely. That's why we do it the way we do it, because it's cumbersome to do it otherwise. And so for statistical simplicity, we just use boxes. And you can make that better by adding one single line in your method section using a binary system. We did this statistical analysis, and we all agreed on that. That's all it is, dude. When we're talking about ecosystems and we're doing ecology, and we're talking about the different species, we don't talk about the variation of those species. We just use boxes. Does that mean that species are really a thing? No. When we're talking about communication in animals or tool use in animals, is that a real thing that we can clearly define as a... No, it's fuzzy and weird. We use it as if it's simple to define in order to do science. That's all I'm trying to get across to you, dude. Sex is not... Sex, of course, exists, but the sex categories that you are relying on are human-defined things that are not as clean-cut as you are pretending. And the fact that we do science with these clear-cut boxes does not mean these boxes are real. It means that they are statistically convenient, and that's all. And that's the same way that it is for just about damn near everything else in biology. It is only with sex that certain celebrity scientists are pretending that this is very simple and very easy and very clean cut, and it isn't. And it never has been. And if you had asked them outside of this context, I guarantee they would have said something very different. But right now it is profitable to say something else. But that's just a hypothesis.
Nobody's saying it's simple. I'm saying is it's...
Jesus Christ. This call was over 15 minutes ago, Rob.
If I could just give you...
Can we move on to somebody else in the switch? I'm doing the people who are viewing and in the chat a favor by interjecting and saying, thank you, Rob, for the call. Yours in Christ, Seth and Forrest. Is that okay?
I think that's great. Yeah, Rob, that's my argument, and it sounds like we had the exact same discussion that we had last time. If you have any more questions, comments, or concerns, check my Sex and Sensibility video on my channel. It's an hour and 40 minutes of me detailing out
welcome.
And you can go learn.
Or call back on Thursday to talk to actual trans people.
There you go. You can talk to trans people. You can talk to trans people on Thursday. Can you say trans rights or human rights for me, Rob, before we move on?
There's no such thing as trans rights. They're just human rights.
And which would mean that trans people are humans.
We're going to continue.
People are humans.
Is that it? We're going to continue to talk to Rob.
No special trans rights. Just the human rights.
Trans rights are human rights. And there you hear it. And there you hear it from Rob. Rob says trans rights are human rights because everybody gets human rights, right? Fuck off, Rob. I do actually remember. The reason why I kept going there at the end, Seth, is because I did actually remember at the very end something from Rob's call last time where I asked him, like, because we were arguing about sex and gender, and I was like, can you agree that, like, because sex and gender are different things, trans men are men and trans women are women? And he goes, I'm not doing your purity test, man. I'm not going to pass your purity test. And like, I remembered that. That's why I put that in the end, because it's just the veneer, the veil, the facade of scientific inquiry from this man with 2 totally real bachelor's degrees in biology. It wears so thin.
I don't want to tell you too much about myself, as if telling you which degrees from what university without you knowing anything other than his first name would essentially allow you to track him throughout the entire United Kingdom. I thought that was awesome. I don't even need the
university. But, I have a bachelor's in integrative biology. That now tells you what kind of study I did and like where my perspective is coming from. And it makes sense. As an integrative biologist, it makes sense that I have a very integrative outlook on sex, whereas somebody who's a reproductive biologist might have a different opinion than me, and that would be an interesting conversation, wouldn't it?
Everybody in the chat is thanking me. They're thanking me for pulling the plug. I'm just, in my own defense, I just saved everyone another 15 minutes, and you're welcome. I'm a giver. This is my role, okay? This is what I do. Because, jeez, almost a half an hour with this guy. Okay. All right, I'm done bitching. Go ahead.
Yeah. Since we are now 2 calls of me talking, do you want to do the next one and I'll shut the fuck up for a minute?
I'm easy. Yeah, just whenever I can be of service, you just let me know. Okay.
I'd love for you to talk about the morality call that we have.
All right, pick it.
All right, let's talk to Mladen. Is that how I pronounce that? Calling in from Croatia, who wants to talk about right and wrong and how we as an atheist think about them and care about them. Mladen, please tell me how to pronounce your name properly. And also, you're on the show with Seth and Forrest, but mostly Seth.
Hello, you pronounce it pretty good. It is Mladen.
Hey, look at me. Color me Croatian. Anyway, Seth, take it away, because I've been talking for a very long time.
I'm all in. What's your question?
My question is basically, what is your perspective as an atheist? Why do you care about right and wrong? Like, what's the basis for your morality? And is there an objective morality in your worldview?
Well, let me ask you first. Do you have a perspective? Where does your morality come from?
Well, I'm going to tell you in short, I have been an atheist my whole life. And then as of recently, I have become a theist. And now I understand it comes from God.
Which God?
Christian God.
So you were an atheist. What was it that convinced you that Christ is real, the Bible is true, or that Christianity is the right religion?
I do not know if it is true or if it is the right religion. I actually went on a, how do I say this? I went to an ayahuasca ceremony, and it convinced me that God is real.
What happened at the ceremony that convinced you?
I had an experience of an ego death where I completely was washed away from all my presuppositions throughout my life. And basically, I came to understand that there is something greater than us, for sure.
Which is different than the morality question. Let's go back. When you were a non-believer, did you steal, lie, rape, murder? Did you do those things?
No, I did not.
You did not. So where did that moral guideline come from? You had obviously a compass of some kind, right? Where did it come from if you weren't a Christian?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm wondering. I never understood why I had this moral compass, why I did the right thing. I just did it because everybody else was doing it. I didn't have exactly the reasoning as to why I would follow the path of right and wrong.
Well, if I may, I highly suspect you weren't acting in pro-social ways simply because everybody else was doing it. Now, certainly you may have been taught, right? Don't steal the candy from the store, tell the truth. Those types of things, I think, can be ingrained by family and culture, and those are meritorious things. But there is also, I think, an innate understanding of what is pro and antisocial behavior. I mean, you look at, and this is the easy one, we go back to our primate past. If we see our ancestors on the African savanna, if they are acting in destructive and antisocial ways, they are actually much less likely to survive and pass on their genes, right? If you see one that is betraying others and lying and stealing, then the tribe turns on them and they're dead and they don't pass on their genes. And so we found that by engaging in pro-social behaviors, all right, they become coalitions, they become communities, they help others, this returns and helps themselves. They are more productive, they're better at warding off threats, they are more apt to survive and thrive if they act in ways that do not harm, but instead help. And we can see ethical behaviors as part of human evolution. And those exist even today. There are anomalies, right? We see sociopathy, psychopathy. We see a lot of, aberrations. But overall, the idea that someone would have to be told by a Christian God or any God not to kill, not to torture, not to have slaves, not to rape, that's actually kind of terrifying. And by revealing that you knew what was right and wrong before you had your experience and before you embraced Christianity, I may be giving you more credit than you're giving yourself. You didn't need a Christ to be moral. It sounds like you were moral to begin with.
That is true. I don't have to actually get my morality from God, but I do think that there is such a thing as objective morality now. And for this reason, I'm saying maybe there is some greater law above the law that we understand.
Okay, hang on. Aladdin, let me ask you this. The objective moral standard argument is different than a theistic argument about a God with a proper name, right? A specific deity. So now you're talking in very broad terms about a higher power that set an objective moral standard in place. So you're saying now that it's not necessarily the Christian God?
Yes, from the beginning, I'm not sure that Christian God is the one, but I did my own research and I researched Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. I went through general religions that are, known in the world. And after the research, I decided to put my faith in Christ because it sounded like the best place to put my faith in.
Okay, so if I may, you played kind of a poker hand. You're like, well, if there is a God, I think it might be this one. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you choose to believe in Christ. I think you can profess to believe in Christ, but I don't think you choose what you believe. I think you are now saying, okay, well, I'm going to put my chits over on the Jesus, bet over here. But you don't sound all that convinced to me. And I don't know what your research methodology looks like. I mean, we all have researched things in different ways. Some ways are more meritorious and thorough than others. But at the end of the day, I think we have to ask ourselves, do we need a God to be able to be moral and to extract the best parts of being alive? And then beyond that, we have to ask larger questions. What do we do about the Christian Bible upon which the whole faith is constructed when the Bible falls apart upon even a cursory examination, scientifically, historically, and morally? That's a problem because you cannot extricate Christianity from the Bible of Christianity. And again, you don't need it. You don't need a Christ. You don't need an Allah Muhammad. You don't need a Krishna. You don't need any gods and monsters to be able to live a good moral life. Why do you need it?
Okay, based on what you explained earlier, you said that we, in primates kind of way, we behave in a certain path so that we can strive and thrive as
in many
a
cases,
community.
yes.
And yeah,
yes.
Is that like the source of acting good, basically?
I'm saying, and Forrest is probably better qualified. I know the primatologist, Eric, and we were all talking about this the other day. I don't think it takes a big stretch for us to see that creatures acting in pro-social ways fare better. They do better, even if you don't believe in true altruism. All right. Even if I'm always thinking that whatever I do, whatever I say, however I behave in a pro-social way will come back to benefit me, so what? You're still acting in a pro-social way to benefit others, which benefits the tribe, which benefits our mutual well-being and increases our chances of survival long enough to pass on our genes, right? We can explain it evolutionarily. We don't need the 10 Commandments. We don't need the Beatitudes. We don't need sacred scriptures, which were obviously written by primitive men in a time when they didn't know much about much. We can walk away and say, it's better to root ourselves in what we can prove and what we can know. I think the morality conversations are fascinating. They're interesting. But again, give yourself more credit. I think you are a good person for goodness sake. Okay?
Okay, thank you. If I may go maybe a step further, then you would say that we create right and wrong as individuals, and then as group we decide, okay, this is going to be good, this is going to be bad, and this is how we're going to act upon those who strive off this path that we have set.
Well, I want Forrest to weigh in on this one, but I think I can be, as a sentient being, I can understand harm because I know what harm looks like when it's done to me. Therefore, I can understand what harm would look like when it is done to another. And then we as a society can put together a framework where there are rewards and consequences for pro-social and anti-social behaviors. These are how societies have been made, and we see these throughout the animal kingdom, right? If you act in a great way, there will be a good result. If you act in a poor way, there will be a poor result. This is also part, I think, of the surviving and thriving of a species. So yeah, we put together a societal construct that says there are laws and there are consequences, there are rewards and there are punishments. And we make those, but we make those based on what we as a species and a culture have landed on as pro-social ethical behaviors. Forrest, did you want to weigh in on that?
I would just say that I usually like to point to Kohlberg's model of moral development, which is to say there's actually 6 levels, but you can group them into 3. Is that the very basic moral development, the most primitive, fundamental babyish moral development is I want a cookie, I don't want to get hurt. The person told me that I have to do this thing, so I'm going to do this thing. The person in authority said it, and so I have to follow orders, and I don't want to be harmed, and I do want to be rewarded. That is the very basic level of moral development. A little bit higher than that, the second level, is to say this is socially constructive. This is the rules. I have to follow the rules because that's what society's doing. I don't want to be ostracized in my society. I don't want to be cast out of my society. I don't want to go against the grain. I don't want to rub anybody the wrong way. So I'm going to behave the way that I am expected to behave in the society of which I am born. And then the highest level of moral development is to say these are set moral standards that I have reasoned out and developed, universal moral principles that I can apply across the board, and I understand that there are gray areas in every situation, but these are the standards that I am coming up with today. And so what you're describing here is going from second level morality down to first level morality. You're saying, well, I just behaved because I was supposed to, and that's just what everybody else was doing, and it was the law after all. But now I know that Daddy told me to behave this way, and I want the carrot of heaven, and I don't want the stick of hell, so I'm going to behave. And what we're encouraging you to do is go up, not down the moral ladder, and say, listen, I understand why. I don't have to, if I'm talking about murder or rape or something like that, I don't have to say it's wrong because it's wrong. I can say bodily autonomy is important. Here are the reasons why I support this concept, both selfishly or selflessly. And I can now apply this principle of bodily autonomy and say, hey, I'm not going to rape anybody because that violates this moral principle. It also just so happens I'm a decent person and I don't fucking want to. But I can now argue that this is something serious and without just saying, Daddy said so. Because ultimately, what you are espousing here is not an objective moral system. It is a subjective moral system, and there's nothing wrong with that. Every moral system is subjective. But your subjective moral system is going to be divine command theory. God is the subject. It's only objective to you because this one eternal subject has decided what your morals are. And if he changes his mind, then your morals must change too, as happens in the Bible. Rape's good in the Bible in certain places. Genocide is good in the Bible in certain places. Slavery is good in the Bible for the whole damn time. And you don't hold those principles today because your subjective morality is derived from your culture around you and from your own intellect. And you pretend that God gave it to you when in reality it would be significantly worse if God gave it to you. So that's the whole thing for me is I think that you are selling yourself short, and I think that you are a better person than the God that you worship.
Okay. Let's say you mentioned slavery. There
Quickly.
was a time in, sorry?
Quickly, go ahead.
Yeah, so there was a time in the past when slavery was good, considered good, and we had slaves. When did we decide that maybe that is not such a good thing? So why didn't we as a society evolve better than that?
If you want the reason why slavery was allowed, it's because, the same reason that any moral evil in our society is allowed. It's because of corruption and greed, and power over others is always valued.
And ignorance.
Greed and stupidity, man. It drives the wheel of evil all the damn time. But enlightened opinions prevailed. And when you're talking about Christianity, there were plenty of Christians who were abolitionists that were talking about how, the will of God is that all people are equal on the planet. John Brown, good gravy, dude, out here saying that, God wants slavers dead, and I agree. Meanwhile, you have the KKK, who's a Christian organization. The Confederacy was a Christian nation. So, at the end of the day, it's just people growing up. You have an outdated system that people were doing for a very long time because they wanted power, because they wanted money, because they wanted control, because they didn't see different humans as equals. Some systems of slavery were more like indentured servitude. Some others were more severe and brutal, like here in America, and blah, blah, blah. You can compare and contrast. That's all very interesting. But eventually we got to a point where we all grew the fuck up and said, hey, let's not do this to each other anymore, except here in America where we still have slavery. But
no,
that's a different thing.
It's like that Maya Angelou quote, when you know better, you do better, right?
Yes.
The ignorance of our primate past often informed many of the bad decisions. But as we evolved and evolved our thinking, when we knew better, then we did better. And now we're not going to go back and say, wow, owning other people as property is good. I would hope not, or they would be an anomaly, right? Because we as a species have evolved past those bad ideas.
Right, for sure. Does that make sense, Mod?
It makes little sense. I'm trying to piece it all together, as you said. I'm trying to understand the third level that you mentioned. What is the fundamental for the third level? How do I go up the ladder?
Sit down and think very seriously about what you believe and why. Even the things that you think are very obvious moral situations, really think them out and challenge them and try to come up with fundamentals. You don't have to have a specific thing for every single thing to be a good person, but you do need to be taking the time to sit down and think about it. Morality is real interesting, is real cool, and if you sit down and really think about, okay, why am I this way, and you can then come up with, okay, do I want to live in a world where this isn't the case? No. Why is it that every single religion and philosophy around the world comes up with something like the golden rule? It's because we all understand that we're not the only thinking person in the room. We all understand what it feels like to be hurt and abused and betrayed, and we don't want to do that to anybody else. And so you have that, treat others how you want to be treated. It permeates everything. And then when you grow up and you become really, really cool, you start treating people how they want to be treated too, unless they're an asshole. But with that, anyway, Mladen, we're going to move on to the next call. We've got a couple of theists left, and we only have a little bit of time left in the show, but I appreciate you calling in, and I hope this helps.
Okay, thank you for having me on. Good luck.
Take care.
I think he was calling from the, whatever that cell was in the first scene in the movie Saw. They're chained to the wall with a hacksaw. I hope you're okay, Mladen. I hope you're all right. Yeah, in there.
Can I express my extreme grumpiness that I had to do fucking 23 minutes of, but this scientist said this dumb thing and you got the I did ayahuasca and now I'm a Christian call.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
I'm so rude.
No, the universe loves me. That's just clean living. If karma does exist, it favors me. It shines upon me, and it punishes you mostly for all the abuse that you have given me over I don't know how many puns and how many and there is a surprise coming for those who are attending the March 7th event. Something that Forrest put together. I get a text from Forrest. Was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago? And he says like the most terrifying sentence in the history of language. He says, "I've got a great idea." And it was. Jesus. And it was. And then yesterday happened, and it could not have gone any better. And if you guys want to see it, come to our show on March 7th, because it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's so good. I think that between that and starting the show with these fake glasses today, that's why I had to talk to Rob. That's why the universe punishes me. That is, I'll never live it down. It will exist it will probably exist beyond me. And anyway, by the way, if you want to know about the show, March 7th, details at my website, sethandrews.com/March7, the number 7, sethandrews.com/March7. I just checked. Our capacity is at 300. We are doing, I don't know how many tickets a day, but we're at 225 and they're moving. So I think we're going to have a packed house. It's going to be exciting. So 75 people. And you will see what his great idea was, and it will shock and horrify you in ways that you never anticipated. Because I could not be happier with the outcome. I could not be happier. This is how bad it was. I get a text from after we're done, and Forrest says, "This is what happens when you play God." That's how self-satisfied the man is over the result of what happened. It was so beautiful. It keeps me up at night. It lives in my dreams. I see that one with the I see that when I close my eyes. God. Hey everybody, go to valkailabs.com, go to the events page, and you can find the link to it there as well. And you don't have to do a / link. Just valkailabs.com, go to events right there, and then click on the show with me, Erica, and Seth. Okay. And come see us live in concert, in the flesh, and what it'll be great. We've got, by the way, Todd McKenzie, call in. If you have questions, quit getting muted in the chat. Pick up the phone. Same thing with, who's the other one that just got fucking muted a second ago? Oh, Glob. The other person, Exami or whatever the fuck, had to be muted again. Like, just call in. It's not that hard. If you have an issue, pick up the phone. Tell us what your issues are. Oh, well, never mind. They just closed lines. If only you had 90 minutes so far to pick up the phone. Call me next time. I'm hosting every week. Let's talk to Danny. Pronouns he, him, who wants to talk about why it doesn't make sense not to believe in a god. Danny, you're on the line with Forrest and Seth. How you doing today?
Oh, hi. Okay, I'm doing fine. Okay, I wanted to talk about something because you both have claimed to be atheists, right?
We have claimed, and so we are.
Okay, so you are. But you're not saying that you know that there is not a God. Is that true?
We haven't. True, yes. We don't believe there is a God. There is no good reason to believe that there is a God. It doesn't make any sense to believe that there is a God. However, to make the positive claim that there definitely is not one would require access to powers and observation that we do not have. So, like, for the same reason I can't say that there is not, for certainly not, a teapot floating on the dark side of the moon, I can say there is, no good reason to say that that exists, and there's no good reason to say a God exists.
Okay, so if we can't go by what we believe in as a sure thing, then truthfully, how can we really live that belief?
The same exact way that you live the belief that there is no Easter Bunny. Just, you go about your life living, and this concept doesn't affect you in any way. And if someday someone proves to you that the Easter Bunny is real, you would change your life accordingly, mainly by being terrified. And if they prove to you, someday someone confronts you and asks you to demonstrate whether or not the Easter Bunny is real and tries to argue with you about it, you'll be thoroughly confused and annoyed. So that's how we do it.
Oh, well, okay. Well, if I was an atheist and I really felt that there was no God, I would feel that if I was showing good morals to this society and I was being friendly and everything, it would be criminal for me because I would be at fault for a lot of bad crimes happening, like children being killed or being raped, because I didn't take the initiative to kill what evil there was, and I didn't make the judgment call on doing something about it because that's something that I don't do. I don't do those bad things. So that's
right.
The thing. It would be criminal for me to have good morals.
That's not true at all. You not participating in those evil things is good enough. You helping to stop those evil things is better, but you can't do everything. You can't be every judge, jury, and executioner for every single one of these crimes. You can't go investigate every single crime. What you can do is contribute to a society which has structure and which has people who actually work in law enforcement, actually work in criminal justice, actually work in the legal system, and actually keep things sane and civil and help hold those things together. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. There are a lot of critiques about the way that we do it. There are critiques about the way other people do it. Lots of people who sit down and deal with the theory of this. You could be one of those people. There's lots and lots of ways for every single one of us to make this world a better place and be moral while doing so. But here's the gambit for you, Danny, is that if you believe there is a God, then that God is responsible for all those bad things that you're complaining about. At the very least, he's complicit in it. Because while you and I like to say, if you or I saw a child being raped or a person being murdered or an old woman being mugged, we would do something to stop it. We would either step in and intervene or we would call somebody else who could. Your God sits there with folded arms and says, go ahead and have your fun, I'll torture you later. And that's simply not good enough for me. And if the child who is being raped doesn't believe in him and worship him as whole, then that child also gets tortured as well. Not a good moral system, right?
Well, gee, I mean, here you talked a whole lot, and the deal is that you're wrong because the truth of the matter is God did not create us. He created the perfect human being, and we are part of the creation of the fallen world. So we are part of his creation, but he didn't create us.
Sounds like you're a Christian, Danny. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So just really quick, is God all-knowing?
Yes.
Great. So then he knew exactly what was going to happen. He knew that we were going to be fallen. He knew all these things were going to occur, and he didn't make the universe in a different way so that those things didn't happen. Why not?
It's true, but that doesn't mean that he made it happen just because he knows.
No, Danny, that's not the question. Essentially, a version of this is, why would God create anyone he foreknew would end up in hell? Why would he do that? Why would he proceed with a failed plan when he foreknew it would fail and fall?
Strictly because he is given that creation life, and that was his right to do that. But it doesn't mean that he made it because
he could. So he did it because he could.
And it doesn't mean that he made it happen.
So
hang on.
No, it does. It absolutely does. If I have a set of dominoes, and the very last domino falls on a button that launches a nuke, if I push the first domino, because it's my right to push dominoes all I want, and I know what's going to happen, that it's going to launch a nuke at the end, I launched the fucking nuke. I did that. I launched the nuke. I am responsible. If God knows everything that's going to happen, and he is infinitely powerful, he could make the universe any way that he wants. He could change anything that he wants at any time. He knows how to make a universe where he doesn't violate anybody's free will, and everybody is moral all the time, and nothing bad happens, and nobody has to go to hell. He knows how to do that. He is all wise, all powerful, all knowing, everything. And yet, He made this universe where 10,000 children starve to death every day. And he did it on purpose.
Well,
he can't blame anybody else but himself.
Okay, well, I can answer that, but I can't overtalk you because I'm going to have respect for your show. I'm not going to be rude. But the simple fact is what you said, it's actually pretty weak, really. And not only that.
Tell me why.
Because if God knows all things and there's innocent children getting killed or whatever, okay, at one point in time, Hitler was an innocent young boy. But what did he grow up to be? If God knows all things, he knows what innocent child will turn into a real monster and cause chaos in our world. And if they got killed, he knows that. We don't know that. What if you could go back in time and find Hitler back when he was 8 or 9 years old, and you're the only one that knows he's going to become this guy that is going to try and rule the world and have everybody killed except for a blonde-haired, blue-eyed person? Would you do anything about it, or would you be like, no,
yes.
I better not, you know?
Yes, I would do something about it.
You would do something about it? Oh, okay,
yes.
You would do something about it. And that's the thing.
Yes.
You would be in a situation to either go to prison for it, or is that you start shooting at people that want to kill you.
Why would I go to prison?
Trying to arrest you? You'll go to prison. I wouldn't let him take me to prison. I'd be like, hey, I did something for you.
Forrest didn't say he would murder the 8-year-old.
I didn't.
He said he would take a preventative measure to expose and prevent the 8-year-old from becoming the adult that would try to ruin the world. That's different.
I would educate Hitler. I would help him. I would give him the care that he needed as a child to not become a monster. I would change the course of his life in such a way. I would introduce him to more people. I get him involved in more charity work. I would do things to make him a better person. And if I saw that he was going down that path, I would stop him. I would do things that I had to do non-lethally until I was forced to do something else when he was an adult. Like, there's a gradient. There's a lot of steps that can be taken. And I am not all-powerful. God is. So God sees this horrible thing happening, and rather than doing anything to stop it with his infinite power at any time in his life, God sits there with folded arms and says, yeah, a few million people need to die, but at the end of the day, they're going to worship me, so it's okay.
Well, I know what the Bible says, and he did warn people. If they didn't follow his way, we would get blamed for the things that our ancestors did, the people that were created after us and everything. We would get blamed
like North
for the
Korea.
bad things that other people did. So because we're leaving ourselves in the hands of evil, which you don't believe in Satan, but that's the whole point, is
Danny.
He did do what he did.
I would like to, if I may,
explaining it to you.
Participate a little bit in this conversation as a co-host, if that's okay, Danny. First of all, I'm a little concerned because it does sound a little bit like you are being played at the wrong speed. Are you doing okay over there? You doing all right?
Well, I would say I'm doing all right, but
okay, all right.
Truthfully, I'm not totally all right because I'm guilty of sin. And I am worthy of death, just like
hang on. I want to draw us back to the original point. Let's say that Satan exists, and Satan has imbued the world with evil with a capital E. Who created Satan? If Yahweh created all things, then he created Satan, yeah?
Well, no, he didn't create Satan. He created Lucifer.
All right. So let's say, and again, if we go back to the Old Testament, we can get into the semantics of Satan, which means adversary, blah, blah, blah. But okay, he created Lucifer, who rebelled, became the fallen angel, blah, blah, blah. Why would he create a being that he foreknew would fall from grace and then fuel all of the sin and evil and horrors and genocide and pain and death and torture that would follow? If he knew it was coming, all he had to do was not create Lucifer. And being God, he had that option. I wonder why he made Lucifer anyway. Can you explain that for us?
Well, yeah, I could, and I don't think it's really going to do any good.
Come on,
But,
I am a quiver. I cannot wait for the explanation. Danny, why did God create Lucifer knowing he was creating his own arch nemesis?
Well, you know, he had to deal with the simple fact that his creation turned against him.
But hang on, hold on.
And
I disagree with your premise. A God who is omnipotent doesn't have to do anything. There's nothing restrains or dictates anything to God. He didn't have to create Lucifer. So why did he make him?
Well, you know, you got a point there.
I do.
He does. He really does.
That is hard to answer, but you know,
it is. Yes.
That's not something for me to judge because he is
Why?
the creator of all
Why
things.
is it not for you to assess whether or not it makes sense and is right or wrong? Why have you decided that you are going to opt out of this critical moral question?
Well, I'm still going to say that we're responsible for what we do.
I got nothing. I got nothing else.
If
we're back.
I have nothing.
This is what happened, man. It's Danny. You literally just discovered. You literally just arrived on your own. You literally just arrived on your own at the same conclusion that we've been giving you this whole time, that God is ultimately responsible. If God makes everything, God oversees everything, God is all-powerful and all-knowing and could do anything he wants, then absolutely every single bad thing that ever happens ever ultimately falls back to him. The buck stops there because somewhere down the line, it was his domino that set all of this in motion. And when you were pressed on it, you first said, might makes right. He's the creator. He can do whatever he wants. I don't get to question it. That's not how morality works. And then you switched to saying, well, no, people are responsible. And you just forgot everything we just covered. I don't understand, man. It sounds like you are bashing your head against this wall. And every time you realize the wall's there, you just bash your head against it harder to prove that it isn't.
Well, then I guess I need to ask, if I was to go out and commit a cold-blooded murder, am I responsible for doing that?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
You are. And you should be held accountable.
Okay. So I agree. So
right. But you think that Danny, that there's a God and a devil that are ultimately responsible for all of these actions, and the devil put sin in the world, and that he's twisting you, and we live in this fallen, corrupt, and so you're not responsible because you sinned, because the world's fallen, because Satan put sin in your heart, because the blah 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 blah. Like it's not just you. We're saying it's just you. You're in this alone. There's nothing else after this, and what you do matters, and you are responsible for it. Which one of us do you think has a better moral system here?
Well, I don't really know exactly what he said because I can't hear you that good because I don't have you on speakerphone. I can hear you better on speakerphone. So
okay,
I couldn't hear you that clear.
Good.
Yeah. Just like, I don't know, man. Do you want to keep going? Because we can ask the same question in different ways. No,
I'm good.
Yeah, Danny, I think we landed on the same point, which is that God is ultimately responsible for everything. And when you came to that point, you dodged it, and you made excuses for it, and you did the thing that we talked about at the beginning of this show. We talked about divine command theory and how might makes right. God in the Bible commands slavery, commands genocide, commands all manner of evil, and commits these things as well. And your argument is it's good because God did it.
Can I say one last thing before we hang up?
If you can understand me.
Atheist, okay, you being an atheist, I would say you should make that judgment call because somebody should be the judge. And I feel if I was an atheist, I should be the judge of bad things if I am living a pretty good moral life. So
let me ask you one more question. Let me ask you one more question, Danny. If any person in this world had the same track record as your God, that they knowingly made somebody that they knew was going to hurt millions of people, that they knowingly made people that they knew were going to become genocidal maniacs, that they knowingly allowed people to rape and murder and hold slaves and all these things, if any human being did the same things your God did, would you call that person evil or mighty?
Well, no, I would not call that person evil. I'd call that person God.
And there's the roots of it. There's the meat and potatoes, is that you worship something.
But, I mean, I did.
That everything.
I did.
You worship something. You did, and you answered in a terrible way. You worship something that any rational thinking moral person would rightly call morally just undefendable. And that's where we're at, man. Have an awesome rest of your day, Danny. Feel free to call back anytime.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.
I think you would have sounded even more authoritative on this, Forrest, had you been wearing glasses. I do miss that about you. Definitely.
I agree.
Adds a dimension.
I could have pushed my hair back. I could have added glasses. I could have been so much prettier than I could have had some scruff going on.
Divine command theory is, it's moral because God, right? God decided he issued it. Therefore, who are we to question? It's an abdication, I think, of moral responsibility. I had a conversation with an apologist, and he was a guy who was genuinely interested in how I got to where I got, and we were talking about God, and I began to go through the laundry list of all these other things and the problem in the Old Testament, blah, blah, blah. And it came down to, well, who are we, right? God made the ant farm, and we are the ants in it, and he can burn us with the magnifying glass because it's his thing, and because we are mere insects. And it was this weird, really a dehumanization, a devaluation of our own worth. And I find that tragic. And again, I go back to when I look at believers who have this point of view and say, well, if my child dies on the operating table or is killed in a car wreck, or I end up with cancer, or the tsunami wipes out 250,000 people in a single day, or whatever, well, God, he can do what he wants. Who are we to question? And I always look him in the eye and I say, well, actually, you are someone of value, and your question also has value. Don't abdicate your responsibility. Don't give that up to say, is it right or wrong? Does it make any sense? These are critical questions, I think.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's my 2 cents.
No, I agree. They're critical questions that people as dug in as Danny just refuse to acknowledge exist. You know what I mean?
I am a little worried for Danny. He was moving pretty slow on the vowels and consonants. Do you think he was lit? I mean, I know we're just guessing, but do you think the guy had been partaking something?
It's tough to say.
Okay. All right.
But I think that the most telling moment, wherever Danny was at, however many cans in or joints in Danny was, I think that the main thing that I think needs to be remembered is that your gambit was perfect. Where does evil come from? Well, it comes from Satan. Who made Satan? God made Satan. Did God know that Satan was going to be this thing? Yeah, of course. Okay, why? And you could hear the hamster, choking and gasping for air on the wheel for a minute. And then he just said, well, God can do whatever he wants. And then he said, well, I'm not, who am I to judge? Because, where's it, blah, blah, blah. And then he ended on, I can't hear you anyway, which I don't think was true. Because it's funny that he wasn't able to hear us, but he the whole time was answering really, really articulate, whatever.
Sorry, Danny. Yeah. We're very sorry about your choking hamster, which does sound vaguely naughty, I think, if you say it just right.
You can choke your hamster, just do it off screen.
I'm sorry, I'm 12. I'm 12.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Let's talk to Bob, who's calling in to give this is what it says on the screen. I don't know what this means. New argument using modal logic for God's existence. Cthulhu save us all. Bob, you're on the line with Forrest and Seth. How you doing today?
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, guys. Okay, hi, guys. So I have an original Aristotelian syllogism based on modal logic for God. So premise one.
Okay.
So premise one, there exists an entity in all possible worlds. Premise two, this
how do you know
entity exists. Would you please let me finish before you interrupt me? I waited 35 minutes.
You did wait 45 minutes, but Bob, if I give you an explanation for why I know that, you know, God doesn't exist, and my first premise is there are beavers on Mars, you don't need to hear the other premises. You can, that one doesn't make any sense. So, like, the first premise you've given me doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I'm curious. Are they just one-liner premises? Premises?
I got, well, if you let me finish my argument, please.
Okay,
so,
I'm going to write down premise one, and it's bad.
Okay, we can contest that. Premise two, this entity exists in this world. Therefore, there is a necessary entity that we call God.
Okay,
now,
that sucks.
This God is a lowercase g and is not a proper name or a title. This argument is valid and sound because God is referred to de dicto. In other words, it's the linguingus of what is said that is true. Therefore, God is not de re. We understand that God damn it does not imply any essences. So from first order predicate logic, the existential qualifications such that there exists an X, such X is talk of God. The conclusion statement or talk of God exists in all possible worlds.
Okay, hang on. Hold on. I'm still back on the lingual Prometheuses of essence of something with God and God damn it with a small g and multiple. Was it dimensions or universes, Bob?
I don't understand your question, sir.
Me neither, because I'm not sure I understand the premises.
Well, do you understand the difference between de dicto and de re?
No, what's de dicto, which also sounds vaguely naughty.
Okay, I was hoping I would have got Matt because he's a little bit more philosophical.
Smarter.
No, I'm sorry we disappoint you.
Many more layers with Matt. With me, it's just
so de
go ahead,
dicto. Let me clarify this. De dicto refers to statements about what is said. De re refers to statements about things themselves. So if I refer to God de dicto, it is just what a statement that we're being said. Now, if I refer to God de re, now we have to throw in some essences. And I'm not saying that this small g God has any essences, but we can still talk about him.
Let me draw
because you guys talk about him all the time.
Come, follow the light, Bob. Follow my voice, Bob. Follow me back to solid ground. I would like to start with what Forrest had said at the beginning. You made a series of claims, truth claims. So what is your evidence for truth claim or premise one?
Because in all possible worlds, we can have talk of God.
We can speak of God.
No matter what language, God is part of the language.
That's not true. So you said a second ago, Bob, you said that this argument is valid and sound. It is neither valid nor sound. And when you say that, it makes me think that you might not know what valid or sound means. And when you say an Aristotelian syllogism, you actually just mean you have three thoughts and they mean God. And that's not what that is.
It might be de dicto.
Did you take formal logic in college?
God can suck
you
my
actually
de dicto,
know what
dude.
valid and sound means?
I do know what valid and sound means. Valid means that the conclusion, like, actually follow the premises. The premises makes the conclusion true. The conclusion cannot be not true because of the premises. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's sound, because a sound argument is one that is actually also true. So, like, for example, if I say, all toasters are made of gold, I have a toaster in my kitchen, therefore my toaster is made of gold, that is a valid argument. It is not sound. The conclusion follows the premises logically, but the premises are not true. What you have given me here is one that is neither valid nor sound, because your argument, I wrote it down, is 1, an entity exists in all possible worlds. 2, an entity exists in this world, which is just a restatement of number 1. Number 3, therefore a God exists in this world. Number 3 does not logically follow from the first two, because you never said a God exists in all possible worlds, you just said an entity. God may not be that entity. And also, it's not sound, because your first two premises are not true.
What's he mean by worlds?
Well, yes, excuse me. Why aren't they true?
Because when you say, this is the conversation we should have had, by the way, when you gave your first premise, and I said, that's not true, and you said, well, let me finish. Here we are. We went all the way back around. When you said an entity exists in all possible worlds, and then you said again now that everybody has the meaning of God, there are possible worlds in which nobody exists. There are no people at all. No things that exist that have consciousness. Nobody. And therefore, in those worlds, there are no entities to talk about God. Nobody has a word for God, like you claimed a minute ago. And also, in this world, there are situations where people do not have a concept of God. So, like, both your first and second premise do not make any sense. They are illogical. Your argument is invalid, and unsound.
Okay, I accept your rebuttal, but it seems like to me that with this show being on for 20 years, that it's all about talk of God. And so if there has to be talk of God, and if this show was on Mars, we'd be talking about God. So I
because we'd be humans.
I think that maybe my first premise is maybe not stated correctly, but I don't think we can get away from the fact that there is a talk of God, and this talk of God,
Bob,
can be de re or can be de dicto.
De dicto.
Bob,
yes,
it's dick all over my toes. But what I'm saying is that this God talk is because you're talking about human beings who live in this world that you currently live in, a world where religion is a dominating force in our day-to-day lives, where religion is pushed upon children. If you were to have a person who was brought up without any religious influence and then put that person on Mars, they would not be talking about a God out there, because they would not have been indoctrinated about these things. They would not have these concepts.
Well,
there's a little bit of a riff on the ontological argument here, I think, but this idea that if you can conceive of God, it sounds like Bob is doing a riff on if you speak the name of God, therefore God, and I think, well, you can conjure in your imagination and your thinking, and you can speak words of all kinds, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they are real. I still don't know what you mean by worlds. All I hear are essentially truth claims with no evidence to back them up, and I'm not sure we're heading in a productive direction, Bob. So I'm going to give you one more bite at the apple. Can you tell us how you prove Prometheus 1? How do you prove that?
Prometheus.
Well, obviously, that is a philosophical way of describing things. And so,
nope.
We
It is a
can't go
truth claim.
into
It is
all
a truth
possible
claim.
worlds.
It is a truth claim that requires evidence to demonstrate it. This is a scientific question.
Define, like, we can start slow. What is an entity?
Well, it could be an abstract thought.
Okay. And what is a world?
Well, in this world, you are on the telephone with me. There's a possible world.
I didn't ask what world I'm in. I'm asked what is a world?
It's a concept that we use to explain how things can be different.
Okay. Is it possible? What the fuck does that mean? Is it possible for a world to exist in which there are no thinking agents?
I'm going to say that depends.
On what?
There's possible at the far reaches at the end of the universe, there might be a possible world where there's no thinking person.
Is there Neptune?
I'm sorry, that sounded like shit, but
is the planet Jupiter a world?
The planet Jupiter is a world. If we had a civilization on that planet, then we could call that a world.
Okay, so your definition of world is a planet which has a civilization present on it.
What I'm saying is that instead of you being on the phone with me, you could be on Saturn looking at Venus.
No, I couldn't. Because Saturn is a fucking Jovian planet and I'd be crushed to death in the immense gravity. I'm talking about reality here, Bob. Is there such a thing as a planet that does not have any thinking people on it?
Yes.
Great. So then premise one doesn't work because those are worlds that are possible that do not have entities. By your definition.
But there is possible worlds where there is.
Right. Nobody said that it's impossible for worlds to have entities. You said that all possible worlds have entities. And I'm saying that that is not true because you defined entity as a conscious thinking agent. That is not true. There are plenty of worlds. In fact, every single world we know about except for one has no entities at all.
So I accept your rebuttal. How do you
Thank you so much.
How do you justify the talk of God?
People believe in things, dude.
I don't even have to believe the talk about a God.
Right. We have two people here who don't believe in God, and we talk about God all the time because it affects our lives. Because people who do believe in God use their religion to do heinous shit in our world, and it causes real harm in the world. And so we try to fix it. People believe in things. How do you justify the talk of all the other gods you don't believe in, or different creatures you don't believe in? People talk about unicorns all the time, Bob. Are they real?
Because I'm talking about them in the sense of de dicto.
Right. Are unicorns real, Bob?
Are we referring to them as de dicto or de re?
Pick your favorite.
Well, if I'm referring to them de dicto, then I can talk about them.
Yes, that's literally what de dicto means.
Okay, so...
But does that make them real?
Yeah, the talk makes it in itself is real. I'm not trying to talk about a God, small g, that has a proper name or title. I'm talking and it has essences. This talk of God does not have essences.
Nobody says it does but you. Do you think that just because people talk about a thing, that means that it's worth believing in? Seth, do you have something else?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Good. I am good. There is no productive direction or a compelling or entertaining direction this conversation can even remotely take. After this, I think 15 minutes is plenty. Bob, thank you so much for the call. I hope you and your worlds and your de dicto have a safe and lovely evening. Okay?
Make sure to wrap up your de dicto before you use it, Bob. Be safe. Let's move on.
It's literally a random word generator, and at some point, I think you just gotta say enough.
What's so frustrating is Bob's entire argument by it's de dicto versus de re, which de dicto is you're talking about just speaking. It's the words versus de re. Literally, I think it means the thing, or to the thing. But like it's. Are we talking about this in the abstract? Are we using language, or are we actually talking about the fucking thing itself? Right? And that's what when we're talking about unicorns de dicto, then of course these words have meaning. Does that mean it exists? If your entire argument is people talk about God, we agree. People talk about things. That's not a reason to believe in a God. And I'm pretty sure was that the one on the call screen that said this? No, that was a different one. Sorry. That said it's illogical not to believe. But that's not an Aristotelian syllogism to prove God. You just said, I don't know what a world is, and people think God exists and talk about it.
Yep.
Fucking get your Nobel Prize, bro.
When he said world, the whole time I'm like, in a world where Bob's dicto exists beyond the ether with a small g, which also sounds vaguely naughty, there is an essence. The whole time I'm literally making the movie in my mind. So
it's not Bob, a small g, that's average. It's fine.
May the Lord bless you and keep the small g God that also has a proper name at the same time, which actually would be a capital G God, but that's the grammar Nazi in me. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Ready? I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, would you jump into the next painful experience?
Yep, I'm good.
Let's talk to Alex, who wants to talk about free will. Alex, you're on the line with Forrest. Seth, please be better than Bob.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Forrest. Do you remember me?
I do not.
I am the guy that you told that I need to watch more porn.
Well, yeah, that's my legacy on the internet. Good.
That's good. That's probably the greatest impact that you've had on my life, for sure.
And do you?
In a world
has it worked?
Where Alex watches more porn, there is a dicto. All right, good.
There's a dicto.
Please.
All right, tell us, has the porn affected your dicto, Bob? Alex, what's going? Has my guidance on your life had a positive impact?
I gotta say, it's interesting stuff.
Yes, it's wild out there. It's a wild west on the internet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hi again, Forrest.
Hello. I don't remember that call, but I'm glad that happened.
Okay. So my topic is free will. Just for starters, do you believe in the existence of free will?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. I don't know that I don't think so. I had a conversation with Robert Sapolsky about free will, and I think he's actually got a book by that title, but these are. I think we act as if we have free will, regardless. There's a lot of navel gazing that goes on in the free will argument, and it can be interesting if you are into the sort of philosophical discussions. But I think Forrest has the right answer. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. And do you believe in the existence of moral responsibility?
Define that.
You do not believe in the existence of moral responsibility.
Define it. What is it?
The idea that you are responsible to deal with the consequences of doing something immoral.
Do I believe that if I act in an immoral way...
The idea that you deserve. The idea that you deserve consequences for immoral behavior.
Well, I believe in cause and effect. I think if you act in antisocial ways, there should be consequences. Yeah, sure.
So if I killed a child and nobody on the planet knew about it, I don't receive any sort of consequences at all. Do I deserve consequences for killing that child?
Well, I think if you are acting in a destructive way, I mean, deserve is a tricky word, but yeah, to a degree, yes. It gets messy if we talk about free will, right? The brain essentially is deciding before we perceive a decision, meaning did we actually have a choice? And then if that's the case, why do you have consequences? Why do we have a prison system, et cetera? But I think societies do have to have a cause and effect consequence model for behaviors to deter antisocial and destructive behaviors. And those exist whether you believe in deterministic free will or not.
Yeah, I would say,
but if I kill a child and nobody learns about it, if I kill a child and nobody learns about it, do I deserve to be punished for it? Like say nobody knew this child existed. Nobody's life is becoming worse because I've removed this child.
I'm tracking. You're talking about should there be would I deserve a consequence for an immoral act if there were no witnesses? And I say, yeah. I mean, it is an immoral act regardless. Yes.
So
yeah,
but why?
I'm trying to take this very surface level because I don't believe in an objective morality, and I'm also nihilistic to the concept in the first place. So I'm trying to take this from just a social perspective and not walk back all the way to the basic philosophy of does morality exist, does right or wrong exist, and what deserve means. Is that the argument you're trying to make? Are you trying to get there, or are you trying to have the more proximal argument? Where are we going here?
My point is that if I deserve punishment for something that if I deserve punishment, I apologize.
You're fine.
Objective. My idea is that morality is more complicated than secular humanism can understand, but in a way that God can understand more. That theism can understand more.
Hang on, hold on. Which God? And what would that God be providing to help us understand?
Well, the Bible.
The Christian God. Okay.
Yeah.
Just to be really clear, forgive me if I've asked these questions before. I talk to so many people. So you specifically said the Bible. So do you believe that the Bible is true, or do you think that some of it's true and some of it's more poetic and some of it's whatever, or do you think that it's every single word is true? Where are you at with that?
I believe that each verse of the Bible needs to be interpreted. For example, the verse saying that you are not allowed to wear fabric of mixed linens. A lot of atheists will take that and run away with it, but what that verse really means is that it is more critiquing people who are finding their human value in material possessions, such as people who wear fancy clothes, mixed linen.
Is it fair to say the broad strokes of the Bible are true? Is that a summary?
Yes.
Okay, Seth, where were you going to
throw in? You're probably going to go into, the biblical slavery and genocide in the Bible.
It'd be worth bringing up. Seth, what are you saying?
I'm
sorry.
I want to know what the purpose of the question is. Do you think there is a model where if someone was to murder a child and there were no witnesses, that they would not be deserving of some kind of consequence? I mean, is this just all academic? How does this apply to our lives?
I think that is what secular humanism is, because secular humanism defines morality of like, you killed this child that nobody knew existed, you killed the child, and then somebody else's life is worse because you killed the child.
No.
You know,
so,
and the idea
that's not what an evolved ethical model looks like. We understand harm regardless of whether or not there are witnesses. And so
it's not just witnesses, it's whose lives are being negatively affected.
Well,
you know,
I think
obviously the child's.
The murder victim, I think, would probably qualify for the list of those harmed. Yes. But I want to know what it is that you draw from Christianity and the Christian Bible. And I guess I have to ask the question of interpretation. If you go verse by verse, who is doing the proper interpretation of each verse so that you know what it really means, since apparently it doesn't mean what it always says? Or always mean what it says? Who interprets correctly?
Well, you have to take it from like a case-by-case basis, because you can like...
Who's making the case? Who is interpreting correctly all of those scriptures so we know?
Humanity, the sum of humanity, because one could
hang on, Alex, hang on. All of humanity for 2,000 years has been going through verse by verse, and the experts can't agree on the basics of the Bible, right? They can't agree on what's literal, what's metaphor. They can't agree on what's contextual.
What is the basic of the Bible that people cannot definitively find?
Okay, you ask. So let's say were Adam and Eve a literal Adam and Eve? Was there a garden? Was it 6 days? Was it a day was like a million years? Was it a metaphor for something else? Was it slavery or indentured servitude? Do you get the Holy Spirit upon salvation, or do you have to say a separate prayer? Speaking in tongues is Old Testament, or does it exist in Pentecost today? How do you baptize? Is it immersion? Is it sprinkling? Is it water? Is it oil? Is there a literal hell, or is it the grave? Is it annihilation? Is it permanent? Is it temporary? Is the book of Revelation literal? Will there be a trumpet and dragons and the whore of Babylon, or is that a metaphor for something else? Who wrote the Gospels? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You asked the question.
I would not say, well, the foundations of Christianity is that God sent Jesus Christ to be crucified for humanity. The foundation is that you get married, you have kids, you love your wife, you love your family, and then if you do all these things correctly, you go to heaven. Because there is definitely like conflicting things of like, you know, how do we get baptized? What do we do on Sunday? That is these difference between denominations. But if you ask any Christian, they will tell you that, you know, that at the end of the day, the basis is the same, is Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. And whether or not you baptize somebody the correct way or not, as long as you have the desire to reach out and to know Jesus Christ, you will enter the kingdom of heaven.
You are talking about a qualification for salvation. You were asking me about the specifics in the Bible. Bible claims that experts cannot even agree on and have been debating for literally thousands of years. And then you segued into the requirements. By the way, it isn't if I do all these things, I will achieve heaven. The Bible says if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. It is faith without works, right? You're saved by grace, not works. You have to invite Jesus into your heart to be saved, and it doesn't make any difference about anything else that you do. Once again, the atheist knows the Bible better than the person who is defending the Bible. I'm going to give you one more chance to try to make your case and tell us what you're thinking and why, okay?
I heard a beep. I've been muted.
You are now unmuted. Welcome back.
We muted you. You were the first person to get muted in the entire show, and Seth did it because you were being a bit of a didicto.
You know what? Fair enough. So what did you
Real
actually
fast.
hear me say then?
Put a punctuation mark on it, my friend. I got 2 calls in the queue, so hit me. All right. What's your point?
I didn't hear what you said because there was the beep. What do you want me to say?
What is the point you called to make?
The point I called to make is that morality is more complicated than what human secularism can understand.
But the Bible does understand it?
Yes.
Yet the Bible has been poorly interpreted, as we've just discussed. So whose understanding would you be going by?
I think if we want to go into like the nitty-gritty details of how, how baptism works, how what we should do every Sunday, then that is more up to interpretation. But the majority of Christians can agree that murder is wrong, that rape is wrong,
unless
that
God commands
pedophilia is wrong.
Okay, wait.
God
What
does
about
it.
the people outside of Christianity who also know that morality is wrong and torture and slavery and rape? They know they're wrong. They know it. They didn't need Christianity to do that. Alex has had a mild stroke.
Yeah.
Alex, thanks so much for the call. I think we're going to move on. But may the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he be with you in your going out and in your coming in your rising up and in your lying down, in your labor and in your leisure, in your laughter and in your tears, until that day you come to stand before Jesus, where there is no sunset and no dawning. Amen.
Hey, once you're willing to talk to Mike Jones.
Who's Mike Jones? And also, Mike Jones can call in. But more importantly, who's Mike Jones? I had more questions. I was going to ask.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Forrest.
No,
forgive me.
It's fine. No, it's there was about as useful as we could have gotten. And like, Alex, you haven't watched enough porn. I think the biggest thing, like, for me, is Alex is saying, well, this God is the only ways we can know right from wrong. We know that murder is wrong unless God does it. And we know that rape is wrong unless God does it. And we know that that slavery is wrong unless God does it. And it's like, you're going to sit here and talk about the same God who, you're going to talk about slavery in the Bible and all this stuff. Yeah. And if your argument is, well, these other Christians who interpreted it literally did it wrong, then you have to go up with what you asked, Seth. How do you know your interpretation is the right one? What are you doing that these other people aren't doing? Also, this whole thing about like, well, you have to, the whole thing is to get married and have children. So you're saying if you're sterile, you're not a good Christian? Or is there nuance there too? Like, what does that mean? I thought the point was that you had to be saved by Jesus because Jesus gave his life and all things. But then that doesn't address the fundamental question. Why did Jesus have to give his life? Why couldn't God just forgive? Why couldn't God have made the world better in the first place? Why did God have to go back? Going back to the question that we had with the one of the other callers, I don't remember who, about the ultimate authority comes back to God. The buck stops there. God knows everything and knows not only is the world going to be bad the way I made it, it's going to be so bad I'm going to have to drown everybody at one point, and it's still not going to be fixed. So, like, who's fucking at fault here? And if you're seriously going to say that we don't have a grasp on morality, so we have to go read the fucking Iron Age sex and slavery manual to figure it out, but only if we interpret it the way that you interpret it, I'm sorry. I think your head's too far up your own ass to understand what morality is in the first place.
I think my favorite part was when you ask for examples of things that are being debated by apologists. And all I had to do was go through just a quick list, and he began to sing just to block out the noise. I think that's a first. I don't think anyone has ever tried to sing me into stopping with the answering of a question. This may be a historic moment, and I'm going to have to mark that down. This is someone sang me silent. Actually, no, I finished my list. I will not be quelled, damn you. I will not be
Alex
silenced.
Trebek cannot stop this show. No, he has tried many times.
If you ask me the question, I'm going to answer the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is funny because you put 50 experts in a room and you get them. My favorite is which translation is the correct translation? Oh, it's the KJV, the New American, the New Revised American, the Living Bible, the New Living, I mean, how many hundreds of conflicting translations are there? And none of them are based on the original manuscript. It's the whole thing is really a circus.
And you're talking, it's also important that when you say experts, you're talking about like pastors and priests and people with doctor of divinity and things like that. When we talk about actual Bible scholars and historians and people who like study the history of the Bible itself, there is more academic consensus there, and they don't believe shit like Alex does. Most of them are fucking not in the same denomination. And so like even there, like it's even these people who can agree on the history of the verse and everything like that don't have a similar philosophy and theology that Alex does.
You just want to sin. You just want to sin, Forrest.
You're damn right I do.
Because you want to tell people to watch porn. You simply, and there should be a consequence for that immorality, for that.
I still don't remember doing that, but then that's pro-social behavior. First of all, what's wrong with encouraging a brother in Christ to find release? But I don't think. I don't remember telling somebody to dissect their child either, but apparently that happened.
Did you hear about last week's show? And I was on with Erica, and we had someone call and say that God had given her 2 doctorates. Like the one and only.
I heard you talk about
one high most creator has given me 2 PhDs. Yeah. And I'm like, well, okay. I think my question was there a Pell Grant or did you get a full ride scholarship from the creator? And
who is God accredited by?
What's that diploma even look like? Is it an aura? Magical. Can you nail it to the wall? I don't understand. And I've heard of a doctorate of divinity, but nothing quite like that. You just never know what you're going to get.
From divinity is a different situation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
What a wild time. This is the show. This is we do. I want people just for a second, just to remember the fact that we do this every goddamn week. And this is how it goes. Is I know what the only kind of Christianity is, and you can't tell me that slavery is wrong. And people talk about God, so God is. And my favorite biologist podcaster said this, so it must be true. And God gave me 2 doctorates. And
that's awesome.
And watch more porn.
Yeah, awesome.
That's the official message of the line today. We have 2 calls left, but just remember, everybody, fuck ICE. And watch more porn. Let's go to our last theist call, and then we've got one last agnostic who has been waiting for almost 2 hours. But this last theist call is calling in all the way from New Zealand. Emberly, who wants to talk about God being evil. You are on the line with Forrest and Seth. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing all right.
Right on.
How are you?
So what I've got, I'm awesome. I'm flipping Skippy, dude. I've got on the call screen here. It says you want to talk about the question: is God responsible for all evil? And you are beginning with the answer of yes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wonderful.
And I haven't
walk us
heard
down
you
that trail.
answer this. Well, I haven't heard you answer this, and I'm very curious what you'd say to it.
Yeah.
The idea being that, and this is a bit of a mess because it's always from a certain point of view. From this point of view, right, God is responsible for all evil because he made everything, yeah? And arguably God kind of agrees with that, and that's why Jesus died for everyone's sins, and then it's kind of up to you at that point. Like, if you agree that God is responsible for your sin, then you trust Jesus to pay for it, and if you don't, then
why? So is that? Are you presenting that as your argument, or are you just saying that's the next question? I'm trying to understand.
So that's after you've responded, after you've replied yes.
Okay, yeah. So I have an issue with it because so let's just walk through it really quick, just to make sure I'm not misunderstanding you. Okay, so we're gonna assume God is real, and God made the world this way, knowing full well all these terrible things were going to happen, and that he was going to have to sacrifice his son. So he made the world to sacrifice his son in it. That was what he was going for, I guess. So ultimately, God's responsible for all evil. He takes responsibility for it and says, all right, I got to kill my kid to make this better. And now you're asking me to trust this fucking idiot that did something so silly. And I don't like that. Number one, he didn't have to kill his kid. He could have made the world different in the first place, or better yet, he could have just forgiven. If he's truly a loving parent, you know, I don't have any children, but I have people in my life that I love very dearly, and I can say that while there are things that they could do that would make me stop wanting to be around them and maybe even stop loving them, there's nothing that would make me want them tortured in a pit of fire forever. That just doesn't make any sense. And there's certainly nothing that would make me want to drown the whole world about it. Nothing they could do about that. So here we have this God who can't bring himself just to forgive, has to invoke human sacrifice in order to make a loophole in his own rules to forgive us. And now we're still not forgiven. We still have to now go ask for forgiveness from Jesus and accept Jesus in our heart and do all this whole, like Seth was talking about, baptism and all these different things. We have to go through these processes to earn love, to earn grace. I think that God, if he was really worth a damn, could just be unconditional in his love and maybe make things better. But he doesn't. So if I accept the premise that you've given me here, I still reject the God who's putting it on me. Seth, do you disagree? What do you think?
No, I'm buying that. I mean, the whole idea of atonement to me is it's immoral. The idea that there must be a blood sacrifice to cover sin, an omnipotent deity who, let's say he didn't know when he engaged in the plan and it all went to shit. He could have simply blinked and manifest forgiveness anyway. Yeah, the idea of blood atonement, torture, sacrifice, human sacrifice, etc., to save us from the torment chamber that God created. I find the whole scenario immoral from the outset.
What do you think, Amberly?
Okay. The immorality of hell. So there's a lot of answers. You said a lot of things. The immorality of hell is a different question that I, in my current state of being almost not Christian, and do not have an answer for. You said God sacrificed his son.
Who was himself,
kill
by
his
the way.
kid, right? Which is
right.
It's important in this worldview to acknowledge that Jesus is God, just as much as the Father is God.
Sometimes the Bible says otherwise, but a lot of people believe it that way.
I mean, the New Testament has a verse that talks about I and the Father are one. We know that most of the major Protestant denominations hold to a triune deity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or Holy Ghost. They are all distinct, but yet the same, which is kind of wacky. But,
there's also the part where Jesus is talking about the end times, the apocalypse and everything, and he says, no one knows, not a single person, not a single angel, nor I, only God. And so he makes a distinction between himself and God in that case.
Pre-crucifixion, he goes off into the wilderness and he's praying to God, who is himself. Yeah, it's kind of wacky. Yeah. So,
but that's neither here nor there.
We're off in the weeds.
Where does this get us? Like, God, let me ask you this, unless I'm interrupting you. Was Jesus innocent? Do you believe, like most Christians do, that Jesus was like perfectly moral?
Depends on your point of view, like I said earlier, because Jesus is God. Jesus in his human life committed no sin. Right?
Okay.
Jesus as God, in this point of view, is responsible for all evil.
So let me just say this sentence to you. I love you so much. I had this innocent person tortured to death so that I could forgive you for the things you did. Is there any other situation where you would consider that love and wisdom and not psychopathy?
I mean, when the innocent person is the person who is saying, "I did this for you."
Even then, hey, what could you possibly do, Emberly? You looked at someone in lust. You stole a pretty-looking spoon when you were a child. You didn't pay a parking ticket on time. Whatever thing you did in your life. So I am going to kill myself in the most obscene and graphic way possible. And that way, I forgive you because I love you. Is that sane? Is that moral? That's madness. And more than that, not only am I doing that, by doing that, which you didn't agree to, you didn't consent to, but because I did that, you are now bound, like it or not, in a covenant that you must thank me for it and praise me for it, otherwise you'll be tortured too. This isn't love and this isn't reason. This is insanity. This is what you get where you have fucking, filthy blood sacrifice as the crux of some backward fucking tribal religion that goes through 2,000 years of the telephone game and people trying to make justifications for fucking rape, murder, and slavery. And you get this concept, like the last caller said, that you and I, are too damn stupid to understand morality, and so the person who flooded the whole world and killed everything that breathes air because he was mad at some people, that's the guy who knows what morality is, and we're all too stupid and backward and broken to figure it out. And for that reason, we deserve to be tortured forever because of how we were born, Emberly. You were born, and that was the worst thing you could ever do, and now you deserve to be thrown in a lake of fire for all eternity. And the only way that you get the dignity of grace, of being treated like a human being, is to grovel on your knees and thank this fucking magical carpenter from Bethlehem who didn't do anything to stop any of the evil in his time and had some decent ideas, but nothing magical or that could have come from anywhere else. Like, I'm sorry, dude. I don't get the appeal, yo. I just don't.
Yeah, and I'm nearly there. But so I don't remember if I've heard you answer this either on why hell is just. What I got when I asked that question was that the severity of a crime changes depending on who you do it against, and God being infinite, just like inherently rejecting him is inherently infinite crime, therefore deserves infinite punishment.
Do you believe that the severity of a crime depends on who you do it against? Because I do sometimes. But I do, I take it very differently than you do.
If you kill a worm, or if you kill a cat, or if you kill a person, was the example.
Sure.
It's very different.
Sure. Very different, and it comes from a matter of perspective. Let's talk about, like, thinking agents, though. God is a thinking person, so, like, let's say I steal something, or I shoot somebody, right? That could be bad. If I stole from some poor old lady on, her food stamps, that's bad. And if I shoot some, random person who's just trying to make their way in life, that's bad. But if I steal from, like, a major corporation in order to feed my family, that's definitely less bad. And if maybe you could call it not bad at all. And if I shoot somebody who's, a fascist who's going down the road, killing people based on their skin color, like, that's a good thing. I could say you're stopping harm from happening. Not pleasant, not ideal, but definitely not evil. So now this God, the through line for my morality here, when I say that I agree that your actions have the things you do have different weight depending on who you do them, it's who's in a position of authority and power. That's where my line is.
Okay.
I think if you're hungry and you steal from Walmart to feed yourself, I don't give a shit because they are massively powerful, massively wealthy. They're not going to be harmed at all from this, and your life matters. If, however, you steal from somebody who's barely scraping by, you are really seriously hurting this person and you're a shithead, right? Same thing with God. God is massively powerful, infinitely powerful, infinitely able to do anything at all. The greatest creature in the universe. And he can't handle me calling him a dick? And he's got to torture me for it? If I insult a baby with no power, I would say that is a greater crime than insulting or blaspheming against God. The only way to flip that on his head is to assume that God is just the most fragile put upon snowflake, which would make sense for a God who said his name is jealousy.
Yeah. God is the ultimate mega corporation.
Yeah, in a weird way, right? Seth, am I going off base here? What do you think?
I mean, I'm trying to understand the question. Are you arguing the morality of hell because it's proportional?
Yeah, I was looking for your answer on that argument, yeah.
The idea that because we killed the blameless Christ, we deserve an infinite consequence for that?
The idea would be that because you dishonored the infinite God.
Okay, fine.
That would be
fine. Let's allow that Omni-God somehow decided to proceed with a plan that would fail within the first 3 chapters of Genesis and then would just result in all kinds of chaos and mayhem. And let's say that the only way to save us would be to impregnate an unwed teenager with himself for the purpose of ritual torture and human sacrifice. Let's say an atonement had to be made. Why eternal torment? Depart from me, you who are cursed, into a lake of everlasting fire and damnation. Why not just kill us, right? Annihilate us, right? Firing squad, it's over. Why burn us? And then if we have flesh, it burns away and we're reconstituted and we burn again, right? We burn and wail and scream. Why torture? Can you explain the morality of that? The sense of it, really.
Not really. The best I've got is what I've said already.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good place to start. You and I cannot morally defend it. We can't really logically defend it. You and I realize that if, let's say, we have a child who acts in the most horrible of ways, right? Horrible of ways, just goes off the rails and lives a tremendously damaging life, damaging themselves and other people. There is no circumstance of consequence where you and I would say, okay, fine, you've crossed this line. I will douse you in gasoline and I will set you on fire. And then we certainly wouldn't, if we had the power, create a scenario where that person would then be reconstituted to full, healthy flesh. We would douse them in gas and light them all over again. Right? The idea of eternal torment really makes no moral sense. We understand how it's been used to control cultures, to scare people into acquiescence and servitude, but it makes no sense, so we can discard it. And if we discard hell theology, what other parts of the Bible should we discard, whether it's on scientific, historical, or moral grounds, right? We don't need it. Emberly, we just don't. We're better without it. I'll go one step further. I'll go one step further. I don't believe you were born with a sin nature. I don't think you were born deserving of torment. I don't believe the scriptures claim there is no one worthy, no, not one. I don't like the t-shirts where they say less of him or less of me, more of Jesus, right? I must die to myself. Baptism is what? It is an emulation of you dying and being raised again anew, a different creature in Christ Jesus, meaning that your own humanity is essentially being diminished. I don't think that's moral. I think you have worth and value on your own terms. I have a better opinion of you than the mythical Christian God does. And I think you should have a better opinion of yourself as well. You have value on your own terms. You don't need it, okay?
Yeah. And I am kind of progressing towards not being Christian, and particularly relatively rapid, compared to other significant changes I've made.
Just take the journey on your own terms. All right? Don't rush yourself, but give yourself permission to accept your own value. And if somebody says a question is off limits, it's sacred, you're not allowed, you say, thank you. That is now the first question I'm going to ask, right? And you deserve good answers. Take your journey on your terms. You deserve that, and let us know where you wind up, okay?
I'm planning to stick around, and I'm trying to. I keep trying to call into Jimmy to talk about no harmless faith. I think he was the one that said that, right?
I do not know.
Yeah, he did.
Anyway.
Okay.
Making progress. Yeah, thank you for your answers today.
I appreciate you. Good luck on your journey.
Good luck to you, Emberly. You're doing great. Seriously. Take care.
Yeah, I think fundamental Christianity really is an attack on the self. You have to remove your own identity. And then it's how cults work. You remove the individual identity, and then they take on the individual identity of the cult leader or the identity of the group. This is a control mechanism, and it devalues you. I mean, whenever I got out of the faith, I found I got value on my own terms, right? It's immoral to say there's no one worthy. And I was born sinful. I'm a wretch. I'm not. I'm flawed. I got issues, but I have value. Man, there's nothing like being able to embrace that in your own life. So good on you. Good on you.
Yeah, no, I think she's doing great. And I can hear that she was saying like she's nearly there. Like she's on this kind of last precipice, and she's willing to say, okay, yeah, so God's responsible for all evil, but there's a reason for that, right? Because evil is a tool, and God can use evil for good, and God can do all these things that we usually hear. And what I think she's starting to grapple with now, and what I hope she gets through, because this is the scariest part, is like the gambit here. The actual like sell is that you are evil on your very nature. You are broken. You're wicked. You're terrible. It's you being thrown in the lake of fire is not just what should happen. It's the best thing in the world. The most moral creature in the world is doing it. That's. What a hideous thing to say. That's why I talk about the phrase, Jesus loves you. I think it's a fucking monstrous thing to say to somebody. Because what you're telling them is, you're a piece of shit. You deserve to be tortured forever. But here's this sick mockery of love that you can embrace or die. And that's just, I think she's starting to see the cracks in that. And I hope very badly, I really, really, really hope that we're going to get a call from Emberly someday saying, hey, you know what? Fuck that shit. Can you please remind me what the phone number is for RFR? Because I'm now in the deconstruction process, and this just doesn't work for me. We've got one call left, and 13 minutes to take it. Don't forget, today's your last day to get mugs, so buy mugs. Also, don't forget to go to valkailabs.com and head over to the events section to see the show with Erica, Seth, and myself here in Tulsa, Oklahoma on March 7th. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you get to see something truly beautiful that we pulled together yesterday. Something that we are all extremely proud of, and you are going to love it. Something that will be there's no way it's not going to follow us for the rest of our career.
That much is certain. That is certain. Yes.
Let's talk to. I can't wait. I cannot wait for some asshole Christian reaction channel who wants to pick the worst video or the worst picture of us and use it in their thumbnail to use one of them.
Yeah. Gonna happen.
Oh man. Okay. Last call is from Darius, who's been waiting over 2 hours. Thank you so much for waiting so long, Darius. You're on the line with Forrest and Seth. How are you doing today?
Hi, Forrest. Hi, Seth. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
All right. Sweet. So I was curious about what your response would be about Muslims claiming that there are scientifically accurate things in the Quran, like the expanding universe and planets orbiting.
Mm-hmm. I would say the same thing to the people who say that about Christianity and say that the Bible says stuff about the Earth being a circle, which means that it's round, or things being made up of tiny things, which means atoms or whatever else. Seth, what do you think?
I mean, I'm sorry. It's still a book of mythology, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Bible says Jerusalem exists. Big deal, you know.
Yeah.
If we see what was that line that Matt used to use? It's a riff on, if the Empire State Building is real, does that mean Spider-Man's real because he's in New York? You know, or maybe it was the World Trade Center back in the day. I don't recall.
Mm.
The Quran had a statement that happened to line up with reality, and what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess like the point that Muslims make is that Muhammad, who's like making up these, or I guess not making up, who's like claiming these things, is supposedly illiterate. So the fact that like he knows about like these scientifically accurate things that we, for example, the expansion of the universe, which we got to know through Edwin Hubble, which was centuries later after Muhammad claimed it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what like the convincing aspect of it is.
So what? The Quran also says that, if I'm going from memory, that humankind was created from a clot of blood harvested from the spine. You know,
it's that semen comes from the spine. I think
is that
it is as well.
Semen from the spine.
And then it also says that Muhammad flew to heaven on a winged horse, and then he split the moon in half. And so, like at the end of the day, like, yeah, if the claim is these folks knew things that they couldn't have known otherwise, I encourage you to go a couple thousand years earlier and look at the Greeks, who came up with things like atoms and evolution thousands of years before Muhammad, and still we don't all go around worshiping Zeus now. You know what I mean? Democritus came up with atoms. Aristotle came up with something very close to evolution, and they also got things that were very wrong as well. Just as Islam does, just as Christianity does, just as any tradition does ever. And most of the time, when they are claiming to have something, they actually don't have that thing. Like, there's no verse, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I know, there's no verse in the Quran that says the universe is expanding due to dark energy at this rate, and if you look at galaxies, you'll see that the farther galaxies are from each other, the farther they're faster they're expanding apart. It doesn't say any of that. It just says something like, you know, and the world gets bigger, or whatever the fuck the line is. And then people squint at that and say, that kind of sounds like the universe expanding, doesn't it? Same thing with the Bible. There's some verse in the Bible, I don't remember which one it is, but it says something about how, like, everything is made of smaller things. And it doesn't say there are these particles with protons, neutrons, and electrons that come together to form these things called atoms, and there's this electron repulsion, and that causes molecules to have their specific geometry. It doesn't say any of that. It just says there's small shit. Yeah, great, cool. Not a new idea at the time. And so, at the end of the day, you can't really convince me that a man split the moon in half, and that there's an all-knowing creator of the whole universe that's, you know, really doesn't want people showing their hair in certain situations, but is fine with pedophilia. And all of that hinges on, well, this book says something kind of like the universe is expanding, you know?
It's interesting, too. I would encourage you to go back to, I think it's all on YouTube these days, 1980s original broadcast of Carl Sagan's Cosmos. And he had a segment about Eratosthenes, who proved that the Earth was round using an experiment. And this was like 240 BCE, right? This is before the turn of the first millennium. And was able to go using different locations and shadows and all of these different things to be able to determine that. So this idea that, well, you know, somebody wrote down something that happened to align with reality, for me, doesn't validate the mythology at all. So are you religious in any way?
No. I'm agnostic.
So tell me what your interest is in the Quran. I mean, are you Muslim adjacent in some way?
Yeah. So I grew up as a Muslim, but like I've recently like sort of started to like shift away from it because I've like realized that, I mean, it to be honest with you, it all started with like Muhammad's marriage to Aisha, who was like, according to the Hadith, who was like 6 at the time of the marriage, and then when it was consummated, she was 9. That like greatly grossed me out, and like it led me to like a whole spiral. And like I guess like could I maybe answer my own question about like the scientific claim? So
Go
you
ahead.
could
Please.
maybe get
Yeah.
another person. Good. Yeah. So like what I would say is that like these verses have existed for like 1300 years, and like no Muslim scientist has like reverse engineered it, right? Where like if the truth claim was in this book for like 1300 years up until the point of Edwin Hubble like proving it, well then why has no Muslim scientist ever like reverse engineered it?
Right.
It's always like retroactively proven. Like science says something, like scientists prove something, and then Muslim scientists like look for like something vaguely similar in the Quran, and then they say, "Oh, we knew it all along."
Hey,
That's-
Darius,
that is
did
how
you
it
come?
always is, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, pardon me. Seth, the thinking atheist was speaking, and I didn't mean to
Stop.
interrupt.
So, did you come out of what? Were you a Shia or Sunni, or were you a fundamentalist Muslim, or just a casual moderate?
I was. Yes, I'd be a Shia.
Okay. So you did what? 5 times a day praying to the east. You quoted from the Quran. You prayed to Allah. All of it, right?
Would be the West.
Yeah.
Pray to the east. Do you have fundamentalist Muslim family and friends, and have there been consequences for you in your journey of doubt?
Here's the thing: most of them don't know.
Mm-hmm. That's common.
And like, and like if they like, where I don't want to reveal where I'm from, but like in my country, like there's no apostasy laws. Like I wouldn't be like legally, no, nothing would happen to me. But I would 100% face social stigma because of my like beliefs.
Yeah,
that's common, and it's something that we've seen here in the United States with Christians, whether they are emotionally blackmailed or shunned, or they're cut off financially, or there are other consequences. People have lost jobs, they've lost custody of their children, and there are some people who are non-believers who will say, "You're a coward if you don't shout it as loud as you can." I disagree, Darius. I think you are playing chess, not checkers. I think at this point, your journey really is about you, and then you get to determine who you tell. And I also think it is a journey, and I'll make you this guarantee, and I think you may feel the same. If we find out there is a God and there's evidence to support that, we would want to know. But if there's no evidence, you've given yourself the permission to be able to say that honestly, even under your breath, even to yourself in your mind and heart. That's huge. And a lot of people don't get there. They simply never quite get to that point, and it takes a lot of courage. So I just care that you're thinking. I just care that you're living on your terms. I just care that you're asking and that you're curious. And you decide if and when you want to tell anybody else. You determine the cost benefit. But just know it's pretty remarkable that you have taken a journey as far out of Islam as you have. And you have good reason to do so. And that encourages me as well.
Yeah, thanks, man. I did tell like one of my cousins, it did not go well.
Yeah.
Like she, like that person, like they told me, "Oh, you're nothing. You're no one. Who are you to question Islam?" Shit like
Look,
that.
my desire is for you to be able to live honestly. Right? Everybody else is living their faith loud and proud, and you're stuck in this weird double standard where you're supposed to shut up and sit on your hands. And I think that's bullshit, and I hate it. I would love to see you at the point where you are actually loud and proud about who you are, where you are, and why, right? Not having to deal with the double standard. So I think that's the goal. And I also think this is something where you are learning about who really loves you for who you are, who gives you conditional love, who has all of these little requirements in place, who's willing to discard you the second you don't validate them. This teaches you a lot about the people in your life. And you may end up losing some people that you do care about, but they are revealing who they are. It will also expose who really does love and accept and respect you for who you are. My goal is you can get there, but go at your own pace. Okay, bro?
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for talking to me.
Thanks for
calling. Definitely. Thank you for waiting for so long. Call back again anytime.
No. I just want to
take care.
Bye.
Cool.
Awesome.
That encourages me. I mean, that's
awesome last call.
Regardless of what high control element you come out of, to be able to say, fuck it. I'm going to take the journey and ask the questions, and I'm going to go there regardless of what the consequences are. Massive, just massive, massive courage it takes to do that. Anybody watching and listening, if you were on that same path, at your own pace, on your own terms, but give yourself credit. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to do that. So,
absolutely. That's why I love that call with Emberly as well, because like she's at that stage where the most powerful being in the universe is now subject to question. Is now finally allowed to be, called to task for its role in the world. And what happens every single time? It vanishes the second there's scrutiny. There's that old, I don't know if it's a line in the Bible or not, but I know it's a thing that's associated with those exorcist movies and everything like that. Resist the devil and he will flee from you.
It's in the Bible.
Question God and he will disappear. And that's what we're seeing here with the last two calls. And I love that so very much. So with that, I'd like to first and foremost thank my dear friend and possible father, Seth Andrews, who is the only reason I'm not still talking to Rob from the UK, because you cut in and made sure that conversation ended the way it should. And that happened several times. I actually, before the show, I was talking to you about that. I was like, I need you to keep us on task because I will not. With that, stay tuned for more great goodness. I've got Skeptalk with Erica this month, so clear your calendars for that. We've also got the show with Seth, Erica, and I in Tulsa, so sign up for that. We've only got about, 75 tickets left. Buy your mugs. This is the last chance to buy mugs. Go do that thing. Thank you so much to Lux for producing tonight. Thank you so much to our call screener, Jess, there it is. I had to scroll back. Thank you, Jess, for call screening. Thanks so much to the mods in chat. Thanks so much to the people in chat, even the ones that suck. Thank you to the callers, even the ones that suck. Have an awesome rest of your day. Never stop learning. Bye!